As the great Buddha once wisely shared, you will not be punished for your anger, you will be punished by your anger. And the same is true for pain, for hatred, and for every wound we allow to live inside us. Most people believe they are hurt because of what others have done to them, when in truth, the real suffering comes from what we carry long after the moment has passed. We hand strangers, enemies, and even loved ones the power to control our peace, to disturb our hearts, and to shape our days. But the Buddha's wisdom reveals another way, the way of the unshakable mind. Imagine being so steady that someone could betray you, insult you, or abandon you, and instead of breaking, you remain whole, calm, and even compassionate. This is not about becoming cold or uncaring. It is about mastering yourself so deeply that nothing outside you can pull you into chaos. And today, I will share with you 12 Buddhist principles that will make you so untouchable in spirit that no one will ever truly have the power to hurt you again. 1. Understand that pain is temporary, but reaction can be permanent. When someone hurts you, whether it is through their words, their actions, or their silence, it is natural to feel a sting in your heart. Pain in that moment is real, and it should not be dismissed or ignored, because your emotions are valid. But here's the truth that is often forgotten in the middle of that storm. Pain is not a permanent resident in your life. It is only a visitor. Just like clouds drifting across a bright sky, it passes in its own time if you allow it to. However, what often makes this temporary pain grow into something far more destructive is our tendency to hold onto it long after the original moment has passed. Instead of letting the cloud move on, we chase it, we hold it in place, and we replay it over and over in our minds. Every time we remember the insult, the betrayal, or the disappointment, we are not just remembering it, we are re-experiencing it as if it were happening again. This is where pain transforms into suffering. Pain is the natural response of a human heart. Suffering is the echo that we choose to feed. The Buddha's wisdom teaches us that while pain is inevitable in life, suffering is optional because it is born from our attachment to the pain. We cannot always control what others do or say to us. Sometimes their actions will be unfair, cruel, or careless. But we can always choose how much space we give those actions in our mind and in our life. If you let them live rent-free in your head, they will continue to hurt you long after the person has gone, long after the situation has ended. Instead, learn to pause, take a deep breath, step back from the scene in your mind. Remind yourself, this is just a moment, this is not the whole story of my life. This is a page, not the entire book. When you create that mental distance, you stop giving temporary discomfort the power to become a lifelong wound. The reality is, storms are intense while they are here, but they always pass. When the sky clears and you look back, you often realize that what once felt unbearable was, in truth, just a small part of your much greater journey, a chapter that taught you something, shaped you in some way, but did not define you. And when you truly understand that pain is a passing guest, you stop building a permanent home for it in your heart. 2. Do not take things personally. Most people act from their own wounds. One of the greatest shifts in life comes when you truly understand that most of what people say or do has far more to do with who they are inside than with who you are. When someone criticizes you, mocks you, or treats you unfairly, your first instinct might be to wonder, what did I do wrong? Or, why do they see me this way? This is a natural reaction, because as human beings, we tend to filter other people's actions through the lens of our own self-worth. But here's the truth. Most people's behavior is shaped not by you, but by their own thoughts, fears, insecurities, and unresolved pain. Their actions are often reflections of battles you cannot see, scars you do not know about, and beliefs they have carried for years, maybe even decades. Imagine someone walking through life with a wound that has never healed. Everything they see, hear, and experience passes through the filter of that wound. If they feel unworthy, they may insult others to mask their own insecurity. If they feel powerless, they may try to control or belittle others to feel in control. If they have been betrayed before, they may treat new people with suspicion, even if those people have done nothing wrong. When they act in a way that hurts you, they are often projecting their own internal struggles onto you, sometimes without even realizing it. The problem arises when you take their actions personally, because in doing so, you take their wound and place it on your own shoulders. You begin to carry pain that was never yours to begin with. You allow their words to sink into your mind, and over time, they can shape how you see yourself. This is how someone else's unresolved suffering becomes your own. But if you learn to pause and remind yourself, this is not about me, this is about where they are in their own journey, you create a protective space between their behavior and your self-worth. You stop absorbing their negativity, and you start observing it instead. This is why the Buddha taught that hate is never conquered by more hate, but only by understanding. Understanding doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior, it means you refuse to let it define you. When you see someone's cruelty as a symptom of their inner pain, it becomes easier to let go of the need to prove yourself or to fight back in anger. You realize that their actions are a mirror of their own state of mind, not a reflection of your value as a person. And when you reach that point of clarity, you take away one of the greatest weapons they could ever use against you, the ability to make you doubt your worth. 3. Attachment is the root of emotional vulnerability. One of the deepest truths in Buddhist teaching is that attachment is the root of suffering. But many people misunderstand this teaching. They hear, "Do not be attached," and think it means they must never love deeply, never form close bonds, or live a cold and detached life. In reality, Buddhism does not tell you to reject love or connection. It invites you to experience love in its purest form, a love that is free, balanced, and not dependent on control or possession. Attachment, in this context, means clinging to people, outcomes, or things in such a way that your happiness and peace depend entirely on them. Think about how often we tie our emotional well-being to the actions of another person. We may feel happy only when someone speaks to us in a certain way, notices us, praises us, or spends time with us. If they fail to meet those expectations, even for a short time, we feel anxious, insecure, or even worthless. This is not love, it is dependence. And dependence gives others tremendous power over us. When your happiness is rooted in someone else's approval, attention, or presence, you have essentially handed them the keys to your peace of mind. If they decide to walk away, if they change, if they are unable or unwilling to give you what you expect, your inner world crumbles. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to love without clinging, to care without controlling, and to appreciate without demanding permanence. People, like everything else in life, are impermanent. Their moods shift, their paths change, and sometimes they leave not always because of something you did wrong, but simply because that is the nature of life. When you accept this truth, you no longer hold on to people with fear in your heart. Instead, you can enjoy their presence fully when they are here, and let them go with peace if they must leave. Loving without attachment does not make your love weaker. In fact, it makes it stronger because it comes from freedom rather than fear. It means you can say, "I am happy you are here, but my happiness does not vanish if you are not." It is the kind of love that does not imprison you or the other person. It allows both to breathe, to grow, and to exist as complete beings on their own. When you free yourself from attachment, you become emotionally resilient. You stop fearing loss because you know that your peace is not something that can be taken away by another person's choices. You remain whole no matter who comes or goes in your life, And in that freedom, you find a love that is not fragile, but unshakable. 4. Master the art of equanimity. Equanimity is one of the most powerful shields you can carry in life, yet it is often misunderstood. Many think that to be calm in the face of chaos means you must suppress your emotions, act like nothing affects you, or pretend you don't care. But that is not equanimity, that is emotional numbness. True equanimity is not about turning off your feelings. It is about feeling fully while remaining unshaken by the constant ups and downs of life. The Buddha described it as having a mind like a mountain, a presence that remains steady no matter how strong the winds blow around it. Life will always bring change. Some days, people will praise you, admire you, and make you feel appreciated. Other days, those same people might criticize you, misunderstand you, or question your worth. Without equanimity, you ride these emotional highs and lows like a small boat on a stormy ocean, thrown in one direction by praise and in the other by criticism. Your happiness becomes fragile, entirely dependent on what others say or do. But when you cultivate equanimity, you become like a deep, calm lake. Ripples may form on the surface, but the depths remain still and clear. Equanimity does not mean you stop caring about outcomes or people. It means that your inner state is no longer dictated by them. You can enjoy praise without letting it inflate your ego, and you can listen to criticism without letting it destroy your self-worth. You respond to both with balance, because you understand they are just passing experiences, not absolute truths about who you are. This mental stability allows you to make wiser decisions, because you are not reacting from a place of emotional turbulence. This is especially important when you are under pressure or facing conflict. If someone insults you, your instinct might be to fight back with equal force. But with equanimity, you take a breath, you step back, and you see the situation for what it really is, an event that will pass, a test of your patience, and an opportunity to protect your own peace. When you are not easily provoked, you are not easily manipulated. People lose the ability to control you through their approval or disapproval because you are no longer living for their reactions. The beauty of equanimity is that it frees you from the exhausting need to constantly control life. You stop grasping for pleasure as if it must last forever, and you stop resisting discomfort as if it will never end. You start to accept both with the same calmness, knowing that each will eventually give way to the other. In this acceptance, you find a strength that is both soft and unbreakable, a strength that allows you to walk through life's storms without losing your center. 5. Control your inner dialogue before it controls you. One of the most important truths the Buddha taught is that the mind shapes our reality. What you think repeatedly becomes the lens through which you experience life. You may believe that other people's words or actions are the main source of your suffering, but in most cases, it is your own inner dialogue that causes the deepest wounds. When someone criticizes you, insults you, or lets you down, the moment passes quickly in the real world. It might be a sentence spoken in 5 seconds, or a single act that lasts less than a minute. But what happens afterward often does far more damage than the original event. Your mind replays it. You start asking yourself why they did it. You start imagining what they might say to others about you. You pick apart every detail, and with every replay, the emotional sting becomes sharper and more painful. This is the trap of an uncontrolled inner dialogue. The mind is like fertile soil. It will grow whatever seeds you plant. If the seeds are thoughts of anger, resentment, or self-doubt, they will grow into strong, thorny weeds that take over your mental space. The Buddha taught mindfulness to help us see thoughts for what they are: temporary, passing clouds, so that we can choose which ones to nurture and which ones to let go. Most people don't realize they have this choice. They think they must believe every thought that appears in their mind, as if the mind itself were the ultimate authority. But the truth is, you are not your thoughts, you are the awareness behind them. Imagine you are standing on the bank of a river, watching the water flow past. The river represents your stream of thoughts. Some are calm and beautiful, like clear water reflecting the sunlight. Others are dark, heavy, and turbulent. If you stand there observing, you can simply watch the thoughts come and go without being swept away. But if you jump into the river, you are carried by its current, unable to tell where it will take you. This is what happens when you identify too closely with your thoughts. You lose control of your direction. The danger is especially great when your inner dialogue turns against you. A single hurtful comment from someone else may enter your mind like a small spark, but if you keep feeding it with your own self-critical thoughts, it becomes a wildfire. For example, someone might say, "You're not good at this." And instead of letting that moment pass, your mind starts adding its own fuel. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just not capable. Maybe I'll never be enough. Before you know it, the original comment, whether it was true or not, has multiplied into a chain of beliefs that erode your confidence. Controlling your inner dialogue does not mean forcing yourself to think only positive thoughts or pretending negative thoughts don't exist. It means developing the ability to notice harmful patterns and interrupt them before they take root. This is why mindfulness is so powerful. When you practice mindfulness, you become aware of the moment a destructive thought arises. You see it clearly, label it for what it is, a passing mental event, not an eternal truth, and you let it go without feeding it. In time, you start to replace these automatic self-attacks with self-compassion. Instead of, "I'm not good enough," you tell yourself, "I'm learning. I'm growing. This moment doesn't define me." It's important to understand that the voice in your head is shaped by years of conditioning, by past experiences, the way you were spoken to as a child, the cultural messages you absorbed, and the habits you've developed over time. If you grew up hearing criticism more than encouragement, your inner dialogue may lean towards self-judgment. But just as harmful patterns can be learned, they can also be unlearned. You can train your mind to speak to you with kindness, just as you would to a dear friend who is hurting. The Buddha once said, "Whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that will become the inclination of the mind." If you make a habit of thinking with compassion, understanding, and patience toward yourself, your mind will naturally lean toward peace instead of turmoil. This doesn't mean negative thoughts will never appear, they will, but they will lose their power over you. They will pass through like shadows instead of becoming storms. And here is the most liberating truth. Once you learn to master your inner dialogue, you become far less vulnerable to the words and actions of others. Someone can insult you, but if your mind refuses to repeat and amplify it, the insult dies the moment it is spoken. Someone can try to undermine your confidence, but if your inner voice is steady and self-assured, their attempt falls flat. The external world loses much of its ability to wound you, because your internal world has become a place of safety and strength. Your inner dialogue is not just a background noise, it is the foundation of your resilience. If you do not consciously shape it, it will be shaped for you by the fears, doubts, and judgments you've collected over the years. But if you take responsibility for it, if you choose your thoughts with the same care you choose the food you eat or the company you keep, you will find that your mind becomes your greatest ally instead of your most dangerous enemy. And when your mind is on your side, almost nothing in this world can truly break you. 6. Recognize impermanence. Nothing stays the same. One of the most liberating truths the Buddha ever taught is the concept of impermanence, or anicca. Everything in this world is in a constant state of change. Nothing is fixed, nothing is forever, and nothing stays exactly as it is. The seasons change, Rivers flow, mountains erode, and even the strongest buildings eventually crumble. People, too, change in countless ways. Their moods shift, their priorities evolve, their bodies age, and their paths diverge. Every single moment you live is different from the one before it, and the one after will be different still. Understanding impermanence is not simply an intellectual idea. It is a truth that, when fully accepted, changes the way you respond to life's challenges. Most of our pain comes from resisting change, from clinging to the way things were, or from fearing the way things might become. We want people to stay the same forever. We want happy moments to last endlessly, and we want painful moments to disappear instantly. But life does not work according to our preferences. It moves forward with or without our approval. When you can embrace impermanence rather than resist it, you unlock a freedom that allows you to navigate life without constantly feeling crushed by its shifts. Think about the last time you were in deep emotional pain. Perhaps it was a heartbreak, a betrayal, a loss, or a period of loneliness. In the middle of that moment, it might have felt unbearable, like the pain would never leave you. But look back now. You are here. You survived it. It might still hurt when you remember it, but it no longer controls you in the same way. That is impermanence at work. The pain you once thought would destroy you has softened, faded, or transformed. No matter how intense an emotion feels right now, it will eventually shift into something else. That is the nature of all things. This truth also applies to the good times. The moments of joy, success, and connection that we treasure will also pass. For some, this is a sad thought, but in Buddhism, it is a reason to be fully present and grateful for what you have while you have it. Knowing that nothing lasts forever makes you savor the sweetness of life more deeply. You stop rushing through moments and start living inside them. A conversation with a loved one becomes more meaningful because you know there will come a day when it will be only a memory. A walk in the sunshine feels richer because you know the clouds will eventually roll in. By embracing impermanence, you learn to appreciate without clinging, and you can let go without bitterness. One of the greatest sources of suffering is the belief that things should remain the same. When someone you care about changes, it can feel like a betrayal, even if their growth is natural and necessary. When life pulls you away from a place, a job, or a relationship you've grown attached to, it can feel like the ground has been ripped from beneath your feet. But if you understand that change is not the exception but the rule, you stop resisting it as though it were an enemy. Instead, you start working with it, adjusting to it, and even finding beauty in it. The Buddha taught that attachment to permanence is an illusion, and the more tightly we cling to it, the more we suffer when reality proves us wrong. If you believe a relationship will never change, you might ignore warning signs or resist necessary growth. If you believe your current happiness will last forever, you may become careless and take it for granted. And if you believe your pain will never end, you may fall into despair. But when you embrace impermanence, you see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. This gives you a kind of emotional flexibility that is unshakable. You can bend with life's changes instead of breaking under them. Impermanence is also a source of hope. No matter how heavy your burden feels today, it will not feel the same tomorrow, next month, or next year. Your heart will heal in ways you cannot yet imagine. The person who hurt you will lose their hold over your emotions. The uncertainty you face will eventually reveal its outcome. Everything moves, nothing is stuck forever. Even the deepest wounds, with time and care, can close. When you truly accept impermanence, you stop trying to force people to stay. You stop demanding that life freeze in a single perfect moment, and you stop fearing that pain will last forever. You start living with an open hand instead of a clenched fist. You allow life to flow through you without trying to dam the river. This doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you care without chains. You can love someone without holding them hostage in your expectations. You can enjoy success without the constant fear of losing it. You can walk through loss knowing that grief will not always feel this sharp. And here is the profound strength in this principle. When you know that nothing is permanent, you stop giving temporary situations permanent power over your mind. If someone's words wound you today, you remember that the sting will fade. If life feels heavy right now, you remind yourself that the weight will not always be this great. And if happiness is here, you honor it by living it fully instead of worrying about when it will end. The practice of recognizing impermanence can be as simple as observing your breath. Every inhale comes, and every exhale goes. Each is different from the one before. Just as you cannot hold on to a single breath forever, you cannot hold on to any moment, whether joyful or painful. Life is a constant exchange, a dance of beginnings and endings. And the sooner you make peace with this, the freer you become. When you live with the awareness of impermanence, you no longer get trapped in the illusion that you are stuck, broken, or doomed to repeat the same pain forever. You see that everything, absolutely everything, is moving, transforming, and evolving. The storm will always pass. The night will always give way to morning, and no matter where you are right now, this too will change. 7. Protect your peace like a sacred temple. Your peace of mind is one of the most valuable treasures you will ever possess. Yet most people treat it as if it were expendable, something that can be sacrificed for the sake of pleasing others, winning arguments, or proving a point. The truth is, once your peace is disturbed, everything else in your life begins to feel heavier, harder, and less meaningful. Without peace, success feels hollow, relationships become exhausting, and even small challenges feel like unbearable burdens. In Buddhism, peace is not seen as a luxury but as a necessity, a state that allows you to live fully, think clearly, and connect with life as it truly is. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of right association, being mindful of the people and influences you allow into your life. The company you keep shapes the state of your mind. Spend enough time with people who constantly complain, gossip, criticize, or live in chaos, and you will start to feel those patterns settling into your own thoughts. On the other hand, surrounding yourself with those who value kindness, mindfulness, and self-awareness naturally draws you toward those same qualities. Protecting your peace begins with recognizing that not everyone deserves the same level of access to your mind, heart, and time. Think of your inner world as a sacred temple. You wouldn't allow just anyone to walk into it with muddy shoes, shouting, knocking things over, or defacing the walls. You would have boundaries. You would be selective about who enters, and you would require respect from anyone allowed inside. Your peace deserves the same protection. This does not mean shutting people out entirely or living in isolation. It means being discerning. Some people can remain in your life, but only at a certain distance. Others may need to be removed altogether, not out of hatred, but out of self-respect and the understanding that your mental and emotional stability is too important to be endlessly sacrificed. Many struggle with this because they feel guilty about setting boundaries. They worry about being seen as selfish, cold, or unkind. But Buddhism teaches that caring for yourself is not selfishness, it is an act of compassion. When your mind is calm and clear, you are better able to help others, make wise decisions, and respond with kindness. When your peace is constantly disrupted, you are more likely to act from frustration, resentment, or exhaustion, which benefits no one. Protecting your peace is not about rejecting the world, it is about engaging with it from a place of strength rather than depletion. There are many ways people can disturb your peace, and not all of them are obvious. Some do it through direct conflict arguments, insults, and criticism. Others do it more subtly, through constant negativity, passive-aggressive remarks, or emotional manipulation. Sometimes it is not people at all, but environments, habits, or even your own mind that disrupt your inner balance. Overcommitment, lack of rest, cluttered surroundings, and an endless cycle of news and social media can all chip away at your peace without you noticing until you feel drained. Protecting your peace means being aware of these influences and taking deliberate steps to limit them. One of the most powerful tools for protecting your peace is the practice of mindful awareness. When you notice your mood shifting, your thoughts racing, or your body tightening, pause and ask yourself, what is disturbing me right now? Is it worth the cost to my peace? Often, the answer will be no. Maybe it's a conversation you don't need to have right now, a piece of gossip that doesn't deserve your attention, or a problem that isn't yours to solve. By consciously choosing where you place your energy, you prevent yourself from being pulled into unnecessary storms. Boundaries are another essential part of this protection. Boundaries are not walls to shut people out, they are filters to let the right things in. They communicate clearly what is acceptable and what is not, both to yourself and to others. For example, you might decide that you will not engage in conversations that turn into shouting matches, that you will limit time with people who constantly criticize without reason, or that you will take breaks from social media when it becomes toxic. These boundaries act as guards at the entrance to your mental temple, allowing in only what aligns with your values and well-being. It is important to understand that protecting your peace will sometimes disappoint others. There will be people who prefer the version of you that says yes to everything, tolerates disrespect, or sacrifices your own needs for theirs. When you begin to change those patterns, they may resist. This is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking habits that once served others at your expense. The Buddha taught that pleasing everyone is impossible, and trying to do so will only exhaust you. Your responsibility is not to be everything for everyone. It is to live in alignment with truth and compassion, which includes compassion for yourself. Protecting your peace also means being mindful of the energy you allow into your body and mind. What you watch, read, and listen to shapes your mental state just as much as the people you spend time with. If your day is filled with violent news stories, toxic online debates, and constant noise, your mind will reflect that chaos. Just as you wouldn't eat spoiled food and expect to feel well, you cannot consume negativity all day and expect to feel at peace. Choose content that uplifts, educates, or inspires you. Spend time in nature, listen to calming music, or read something that nourishes your soul. These choices are not small, they are acts of maintenance for your inner sanctuary. In Buddhism, peace is often described as a still pond. The water is calm and clear, reflecting everything without distortion. But when stones are constantly thrown into it, whether by others, by your environment, or by your own restless mind, the water becomes disturbed and the reflection is lost. Your job is not to control the stones others might throw, but to minimize your own contribution to the ripples, and to position yourself in ways that shield your pond from unnecessary disturbance. Ultimately, protecting your peace is about living with intention. It is about knowing what matters to you and refusing to let trivial conflicts, fleeting emotions, or other people's chaos pull you away from it. It is about valuing your inner clarity enough to walk away from situations that are not healthy, even if that means being misunderstood. And it is about remembering that your peace is the foundation upon which all other parts of your life rest. Without it, your work suffers, your relationships weaken, and your health declines. With it, you can weather challenges, support others, and live with a sense of grounded strength that nothing outside of you can easily shake. When you treat your peace like the sacred temple it is, you begin to live differently. You speak more carefully, because you know words can disturb your own calm as much as they can disturb others. You listen more deeply because you are not rushing to defend or attack. You move through life with a quiet confidence because you know you are not at the mercy of every gust of wind. And perhaps most importantly, you stop apologizing for prioritizing your own well-being because you finally understand that the calmer and more centered you are, the more you have to offer to the world. 8. Respond, don't react. One of the clearest signs of inner strength is the ability to choose your response instead of being dragged by your reactions. In life, you will encounter situations that test you. Someone will speak harshly, a stranger will act rudely, a loved one will disappoint you, or life will throw an unexpected challenge in your path. The difference between a reaction and a response is simple in theory but profound in practice. A reaction is immediate, impulsive, and often driven by emotion, anger, fear, hurt, or frustration. It is the verbal jab you regret moments after saying it, the message you send in the heat of the moment, the decision you make without thinking it through. A response, on the other hand, is deliberate. It comes after you pause, reflect, and consider the bigger picture. A response is an act of control. A reaction is often an act of surrender. Surrender to your impulses, your conditioning, or someone else's provocation. Buddhist teachings emphasize the importance of mindful awareness as the key to moving from reaction to response. Imagine you are like a deep, still lake. When a stone is thrown into it, ripples form on the surface, but the depths remain calm. A reactive mind is like a shallow pond when a stone is thrown in. The entire body of water is disturbed. The deeper and more stable your mind becomes, the less power outside events have to create chaos within you. The Buddha often spoke of the sacred pause, that brief but powerful space between stimulus and action. In that space lies your freedom. When you are mindful enough to notice that space, you can ask yourself, what is really happening here? What is the wisest thing to do? Will this action lead to peace or more suffering? That moment of self-questioning can be the difference between escalating a conflict and dissolving it, between making a decision you regret and one you are proud of. The challenge is that reactions are deeply ingrained. Much of our reactive behavior comes from old patterns, habits we picked up in childhood, defense mechanisms we developed to protect ourselves, and unconscious emotional triggers. If you grew up in an environment where you had to fight to be heard, you might react to criticism with immediate defensiveness. If you were often ignored, you might react to being overlooked with anger or hurt. These reactions happen so quickly that they can feel automatic, as though you had no choice. But Buddhist practice teaches us that with awareness and training, you can slow down the process. One of the most effective ways to build this awareness is through mindfulness meditation. By practicing observing your thoughts and emotions without acting on them, you develop the skill of sitting with discomfort. You begin to see that you are not your anger, your frustration, or your fear. You are the observer of these emotions. When you can create that separation, emotions lose their power to control you. They still arise, but they no longer dictate your behavior. Another part of responding instead of reacting is remembering the long-term consequences of your actions. A reaction might feel satisfying in the moment you get to vent your anger, release your frustration, or win the exchange, but it often creates more harm than good. You might damage a relationship, say something you cannot take back, or make a decision that closes doors you wanted open. A response, however, is rooted in your values, not your emotions. It asks, what kind of person do I want to be in this situation? How will this choice affect me and others tomorrow, next week, or next year? This is not to say that responding always means being calm and gentle. Sometimes a wise response is firm, assertive, and even forceful when necessary. The difference is that it is chosen deliberately, not born out of a knee-jerk impulse. For example, setting a strong boundary with someone who is taking advantage of you is a response, even if your voice is steady and serious. Walking away from a toxic conversation instead of trading insults is a response, even if the other person accuses you of being weak. Responding means you are in control of yourself, not that you are passive or submissive. There is also a subtle but important truth here. When you react, you give power to the other person. If someone can provoke you into losing your temper, they are controlling your state of mind. If they can push a button and watch you explode, they are pulling the strings. But when you respond deliberately, you take that power back. You are saying, "You do not get to decide how I feel or how I act. That choice belongs to me." This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke about being master of yourself. One way to strengthen this skill in daily life is to practice small pauses in low-stakes situations. When you are waiting in line and someone cuts in front of you, take a breath before speaking. When you receive a text that annoys you, wait a few minutes before replying. When you feel yourself about to interrupt someone in a conversation, stop and listen instead. These small moments train your mind to slow down, making it easier to pause in the moments that matter most. Protecting your peace often depends on this ability to respond instead of react. A reaction usually feeds the fire, while a response can cool it down. Reactions often come from ego wanting to defend, attack, or prove something, while responses come from wisdom, which asks, what outcome will lead to less suffering for myself and others? Over time, as you practice, you will find that situations that once triggered you intensely no longer have the same effect. The words or actions that once pulled you into emotional chaos now feel more distant, less personal. You can observe them, choose your response, and move forward without carrying the burden of regret. And here is the deeper beauty of this principle. When you respond instead of react, you begin to shape not just your own experience but the experience of those around you. You become a calming influence in a world full of reactivity. You stop adding to the noise and instead become a source of clarity. This doesn't just protect your peace, it inspires others to protect theirs. People feel safer and more respected around you, and in turn, they are more likely to meet you with the same steadiness you show them. In the end, responding instead of reacting is a form of freedom. It is the freedom to live by your own principles, rather than being at the mercy of every emotional wave that hits you. It is the freedom to decide, in each moment, who you will be and how you will carry yourself. And when you live from that place of deliberate choice, you discover that nothing and no one can easily pull you out of balance, because your calm is not a gift from the world. It is something you have built within yourself, and only you have the key to it. Let go of the need to be understood by everyone. One of the deepest forms of suffering comes from the longing to be understood by everyone. We want people to see our heart, to know our intentions, to believe in our sincerity, and to treat us fairly based on who we truly are. And when they don't, when they misinterpret our actions, twist our words, or judge us without taking the time to know us, it can feel like a wound that goes far deeper than simple disagreement. This is because, at our core, we crave connection. We want to feel seen, heard, and valued. But one of the most liberating truths you can ever embrace is this: no matter how kind you are, no matter how carefully you choose your words, no matter how much good you do, there will always be people who misunderstand you. The Buddha understood this reality well. Even during his lifetime, despite his wisdom, compassion, and pure intentions, he was misunderstood, criticized, and even falsely accused. If a being of such clarity and goodness could not escape misunderstanding, how could we expect to? The truth is that the way people see you has far more to do with their own perspective than with your reality. People see through the lens of their own experiences, beliefs, insecurities, and biases. Two people can watch you do the exact same thing. One might see generosity, the other might see manipulation. One might see courage, the other might see arrogance. Their perception is their own creation, and it cannot be entirely controlled by you. The suffering comes when you believe that it is your job to fix their perception. You might try to explain yourself over and over, crafting the perfect words in the hope that if you just say it right, they will finally understand. You might replay conversations in your mind, thinking, if only I had said this differently, or maybe if I do this, they'll see the truth. And sometimes they might. But more often, those determined to misunderstand you will find a way to hold on to their version of the story, no matter what you do. This is because, for some, misunderstanding you serves a purpose. It allows them to protect their ego, maintain their beliefs, or justify their own actions. When you let go of the need to be understood by everyone, you reclaim an incredible amount of emotional energy. You stop chasing after every misunderstanding, trying to untangle it until it becomes clear. You stop needing every person to validate your truth. Instead, you focus on living that truth, regardless of who recognizes it. This does not mean you stop caring about honest communication. It means you choose your battles wisely. You explain yourself when it serves growth or connection, but you do not exhaust yourself trying to convince those who are committed to their own version of events. Buddhism teaches us to let go of clinging, and this applies to the clinging we do toward other people's perceptions. Clinging to the idea that everyone must approve of us or understand us is like trying to hold water in your hands. It will always slip away. When you loosen your grip, you realize you do not need universal understanding in order to live in peace. The people who matter will take the time to listen, to see you, to ask questions instead of making assumptions. Those who do not are revealing their own limitations, not yours. One of the great freedoms in life comes from allowing misunderstanding to exist without it destroying your peace. When someone twists your intentions, you remind yourself, they are seeing this from where they stand, not from where I stand. When someone spreads false assumptions, you remember, truth does not vanish because someone fails to recognize it. This mindset does not develop overnight. It is a skill, like meditation or mindfulness, that grows with practice. At first, you may still feel the pull to defend yourself in every situation, but over time you learn to choose silence when words will not help, and to walk away when staying would only deepen the conflict. Letting go of the need to be understood is not the same as refusing accountability. If you make a mistake and it causes harm, it is compassionate and wise to clarify your intentions and take responsibility for your actions. But there is a difference between accountability and chasing approval. Accountability is about integrity, it comes from within. Chasing approval is about validation, it depends on others. The former strengthens your peace, the latter drains it. This principle also requires you to release the illusion of control over how your story is told. You may live with integrity every single day, but someone else might still tell your story in a way that makes you the villain. If you hinge your self-worth on correcting every false narrative, you will live in constant exhaustion. The Buddha said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Your peace cannot come from forcing the outside world to reflect you perfectly. It must come from the unshakable knowing of who you are and what you stand for. There is also a deep compassion in this practice, because when you stop needing to be understood by everyone, you stop demanding that others be fully understood by you. You recognize that just as they cannot see every piece of your heart, you cannot see every piece of theirs. You learn to live with the mystery of others, giving them space to be different, to be imperfect, to be misunderstood, without it being a threat to your own stability. This compassion goes both ways. It allows you to forgive those who misjudge you, and to forgive yourself for not being able to fix every misunderstanding. Another layer to this truth is that sometimes people's misunderstanding of you is temporary. In the moment, they may misread your choices, but time has a way of revealing truth. Often, the people who once doubted you will eventually see the bigger picture, though they may never admit it out loud. And even if they don't, your life itself becomes the proof. Over years, your consistent actions, your integrity, and your way of living will speak louder than any explanation you could have given. The practice of letting go here is an act of self-liberation. Imagine walking through life carrying a bag filled with stones, each stone representing a misunderstanding you are trying to fix. Every time you hear that someone misinterpreted your intentions, you pick up another stone. Every time you argue to prove your sincerity, you carry it around. Over time, the weight is crushing. But when you let go, when you allow misunderstandings to drop without picking them up, you walk lighter, breathe easier, and move with more freedom. In Buddhist thought, clinging always leads to suffering, and clinging to being understood is no different. When you can stand firm in your truth without demanding that others recognize it, you become untouchable in a way that surprises even you. Their words no longer keep you awake at night. Their opinions no longer dictate your mood. You may still feel the sting of unfair judgment. It is human to feel that, but it no longer controls you. You acknowledge it, you let it pass, and you return to the stillness within yourself. Here's the key. The people who truly matter will make the effort to understand you, and the ones who don't were never the ones who deserved your peace in the first place. Life is too short to waste your energy trying to convince someone to see you with clarity if they have already decided not to. Your responsibility is to live with integrity, compassion, and honesty. Beyond that, you are free. And that freedom is far more valuable than universal approval. 10. Practice compassion, even toward those who hurt you. At first, this principle may feel like one of the hardest in all of Buddhist wisdom to accept. How can you practice compassion towards someone who has betrayed you, lied to you, humiliated you, or caused you deep emotional pain? Isn't compassion something we reserve for those who deserve it, for those who are kind, loving, and respectful toward us? On the surface, that might seem reasonable, but the Buddha taught something far more transformative. Compassion is not a reward you give to the worthy. It is a state of heart and mind that frees you from the poison of hatred. When someone hurts you, a natural human reaction is to close your heart toward them. You might carry resentment, anger, or even a desire for revenge. These feelings can feel justified. After all, they wronged you. But here is the hidden danger. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It eats away at you from the inside, keeping you emotionally bound to the very person you want to be free from. You think you are punishing them by holding on to anger, but in truth, you are only punishing yourself. Compassion does not mean excusing bad behavior or allowing harmful people to remain in your life. In Buddhism, compassion is often paired with wisdom. Wisdom allows you to set boundaries, walk away from toxic relationships, and protect yourself from further harm. Compassion simply means that even as you protect yourself, you do not allow hate to take root in your heart. You wish healing for the one who hurt you not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. The Buddha understood that harmful actions come from ignorance, pain, and delusion. Someone who is at peace within themselves has no need to hurt others. Therefore, when someone causes harm, it is often a sign that they are suffering. They may be trapped in their own patterns, blinded by their own fears, or burdened by their own unresolved wounds. If you can see them in this way, not as a monster to be hated, but as a human being caught in suffering, it becomes easier to release the grip of resentment. This perspective does not come naturally. The mind resists it because it wants justice, fairness, or acknowledgement of the wrong done. But Buddhist practice invites you to shift the question from "how do I get even?" to "how do I free myself from this pain?" And the answer is almost always compassion. Compassion does not mean condoning the act. It means refusing to carry the emotional burden it left behind. Think of it like this. If you are carrying a heavy stone, you can either keep holding it, feeling its weight with every step, or you can set it down. Forgiveness is setting the stone down. Compassion is understanding why the stone was thrown in the first place. This does not mean you pick the stone back up, invite the person to throw another, or pretend it never happened. It means you stop dragging the weight through your life, and in doing so, you reclaim your energy for the things that truly matter. Buddhism also teaches that compassion is not selective, it is a way of being. If you reserve compassion only for the people who are kind to you, it is conditional. But if you can extend it even toward those who have wronged you, it becomes unconditional. And unconditional compassion is a source of tremendous strength. It means your kindness is not dictated by other people's actions. It flows from who you are, not from what they do. One way to cultivate this is through metta, loving kindness, meditation. You begin by wishing yourself well. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Then you extend these wishes to someone you love, then to a neutral person, and eventually, even if only as a whisper in your mind, to someone who has hurt you. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. At first, the words may feel hollow or even forced, but over time this practice softens the sharp edges of resentment. You begin to see that compassion is not about them, it's about keeping your own heart light. Compassion toward those who hurt you also frees you from becoming like them. When you respond to cruelty with cruelty, you mirror the very thing you dislike. You let their behavior dictate yours, and in doing so, you hand them control over your character. But when you respond with compassion, you take that control back. You say, in effect, "I will not become what hurt me. I will choose a different way." This is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength, because it requires self-mastery. This doesn't mean you have to maintain a relationship with the person. You can forgive and never speak to them again. You can have compassion from a distance. In fact, sometimes distance is the most compassionate choice for both parties, because it prevents further harm and allows space for healing. Compassion is not about forcing reconciliation. It's about releasing yourself from the chains of bitterness. Another important truth is that compassion toward those who hurt you creates a ripple effect in your life. When you let go of one resentment, you make space for more patience, kindness, and openness in your other relationships. You stop projecting old wounds onto new people. You stop expecting betrayal at every turn. Your interactions become cleaner, freer from the shadows of the past. In this way, compassion is not just an act toward one person, it is an act toward everyone you will ever meet, including yourself. The Buddha once told a story about a man who was shot with an arrow. Instead of removing it, the man insisted on knowing who shot it, why they did it, and what kind of bow they used. By the time he had his answers, he would be dead. The lesson is simple. When you are hurt, your first priority should be to remove the arrow, the anger, the resentment, the bitterness before it poisons you. Compassion is the act of removing the arrow. Understanding why the arrow was fired can come later, or perhaps never. It is also worth remembering that compassion is a skill that grows with practice. At first, you may only be able to feel a tiny bit of it towards someone who has wronged you, and that is okay. The goal is not to force yourself into instant, perfect compassion, but to move gradually toward a state where the hurt no longer defines your relationship with that person in your own mind. You may still feel the sting when you think of them, but it becomes softer, less consuming, and eventually you may reach a place where you can think of them without anger, only with the understanding that they, too, are a human being on a difficult path. In the end, compassion toward those who hurt you is not about letting them off the hook. It is about letting yourself off the hook. It is about refusing to be tied forever to the harm that was done. It is about choosing peace over poison, freedom over chains, and healing over hatred. And when you can do this, not all at once, but slowly, with patience, you will find that no one can take your peace from you, because it is no longer in their hands. Stay rooted in the present moment. One of the simplest yet most transformative teachings of the Buddha is this: do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. It is a teaching so clear and direct that it seems easy at first glance, yet most of us spend the vast majority of our lives anywhere but here, locked in memories of the past or projections about the future. And this constant mental time travel is one of the main reasons we suffer. Think about it. The events of the past cannot be changed, no matter how much we replay them in our minds. The future, no matter how much we try to plan or predict it, has not yet arrived and is never entirely under our control. Yet our minds have a habit of wandering to both places, sometimes for hours, days, or even years at a time. We carry the weight of old wounds, past regrets, and missed opportunities, as though holding on to them will somehow rewrite history. We carry the anxiety of what might happen tomorrow, next month, or next year, as though worrying will make us more prepared. But the truth is, the more time we spend anywhere but the present, the more disconnected we become from the only place where life is actually happening right now. Buddhist teachings remind us that the present moment is not just important, it is the only moment we ever truly have. Everything else is a thought, a memory, or a projection. When you eat in the present. When you breathe in the present. When you listen in the present. And yet, how often do we do these things without truly being here for them? You might be eating but thinking about a conversation from yesterday. You might be sitting with a loved one but worrying about an email you need to send tomorrow. You might be walking outside but scrolling through your phone, lost in another world entirely. The cost of this disconnection is immense. When you live in the past, you carry pain longer than necessary. When you live in the future, you borrow anxiety before it's due, and all the while, the richness of the present slips away unnoticed. The laughter of a child, the warmth of the sun, the sound of rain, the taste of your meal, these moments pass you by because your mind is elsewhere. Eventually, you look back and wonder where your life went, not realizing that it was hidden in all the moments you weren't paying attention to. The Buddha taught mindfulness as the antidote to this constant drifting of the mind. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully aware of what is happening within you and around you in this very moment, without judgment or distraction. It's not just about meditation on a cushion, it's about bringing that same quality of presence into everyday life. When you wash the dishes, you feel the warm water, you notice the scent of the soap, you focus on each movement of your hands. When you speak to someone, you give them your full attention, listening not just to their words, but to their tone, their expression, their presence. When you walk, you feel each step, the air on your skin, the sounds around you. Staying rooted in the present also changes the way you experience pain. If you are hurt physically or emotionally, the mind has a tendency to amplify it by adding layers of thought. This will never go away. I can't handle this. Why did this happen to me? These thoughts pull you into the imagined future or into the story of the past, making the pain larger than it actually is in this moment. But if you focus only on what is here, right now, you often find that the pain is tolerable. You don't have to handle the rest of your life. You only have to handle this breath, this moment. The present moment also frees you from the trap of identity tied to the past. Many people define themselves by old mistakes, past traumas, or outdated stories about who they are. I'm the person who failed that exam. I'm the person whose marriage ended. I'm the one who was betrayed. These are events that happened, but they are not you. When you are present, you see that your identity is not a fixed story. It is something alive, changing with every breath. The past shaped you, yes, but it does not own you. Similarly, the present moment protects you from becoming paralyzed by the uncertainty of the future. The future is infinite in its possibilities, some of them beautiful, some of them frightening, and the mind tends to focus on the frightening ones. We imagine disasters that never happen. We rehearse conversations that never take place. We worry about outcomes that are completely beyond our control. But when you bring your mind back to now, you realize that in this exact moment, you are okay. In this exact moment, you are safe. And from this exact moment, you can take the next step with clarity instead of fear. The practice of staying present requires training. At first, your mind will wander constantly. You might set the intention to focus on your breath, only to realize after a few moments that you are thinking about what to have for dinner. This is not failure, it is the practice. Every time you notice your mind has wandered and you bring it back, you are strengthening the muscle of awareness. Over time, the periods of presence grow longer, and the pull of past and future grows weaker. One of the most practical ways to root yourself in the present is through your senses. Your senses are always here, they cannot operate in the past or future. When your mind is racing, stop and notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. This simple exercise anchors you in your body and in the moment. Another way is to use your breath. Close your eyes, take a deep inhale, and feel the air fill your lungs. Exhale slowly, feeling the release. Each breath is a reminder that life is happening here, not in the story your mind is telling about yesterday or tomorrow. There's a profound peace that comes from living in the present, but it's not just peace, it's power. When you are fully present, you are more effective, more creative, and more compassionate. You make better decisions because you are not clouded by regrets from the past or fears about the future. You listen better, speak with more intention, and connect more deeply with others. You are able to notice opportunities you would have missed if your attention was elsewhere. The Buddha compared the mind to a monkey restless, jumping from branch to branch. Mindfulness is how you train the monkey to sit still, even if only for a moment. And in those still moments, you begin to see clearly. You see that much of what you thought was urgent is not. You see that peace was never something to be found in a faraway future. It was always available here, in this breath, in this step, in this heartbeat. Of course, staying rooted in the present does not mean ignoring the past or the future entirely. The past holds lessons we can learn from. The future requires some planning to navigate wisely. But the key is balance. You visit the past and future only when necessary, and you return to the present as your home. You don't live in the past's pain or the future's uncertainty, you live in the now, using the past as a teacher and the future as a guide, but always keeping your feet firmly planted in the ground of this moment. When you live this way, the world begins to feel different. You stop rushing through life in a haze. You start noticing the details that make each day unique. The food tastes richer, the colors look brighter, the conversations feel deeper. You begin to realize that what you were searching for in the past or future, peace, joy, meaning, was never there to begin with. It was always here, waiting for you to notice it. And perhaps most importantly, when you are rooted in the present moment, you become unshakable in the face of life's changes. Because you are not clinging to what has already gone or fearing what has yet to come, you can meet each new moment as it arrives. You can adapt, adjust, and respond with clarity. The storms still come, but they do not carry you away. You are the mountain, not the cloud. This is why staying present is not just a spiritual practice, it is a survival skill. It keeps you grounded when life feels uncertain. It protects you from being broken by what has already happened or what might happen next. And it allows you to live fully, deeply, and meaningfully in the only time you truly have. This moment, right here, right now. Realize that your worth is unshakable. At the very heart of much of our suffering is a misunderstanding about where our worth comes from. From a young age, many of us are taught, often without anyone saying it directly, that our value depends on external things. What other people think of us, what we achieve, how much money we make, how attractive we appear, or how much approval we can gather from the world. We learn to measure ourselves through the eyes of others, using their praise as validation and their criticism as condemnation. And because the world's opinions are constantly changing, this means our sense of self becomes unstable, rising when we are praised, collapsing when we are criticized. Buddhism offers a radically different truth. Your worth is not something the world gives you, it is something you are born with. It is intrinsic, unchanging, and independent of external circumstances. You are not more valuable on the day you succeed, nor less valuable on the day you fail. You are not worth more when you are loved by many, nor worth less when you are loved by few. The worth of your existence is constant. It does not rise or fall based on the shifting tides of life. This is easy to say but difficult to live, because the human mind has been conditioned for so long to seek external proof of worth. When someone insults us, we feel wounded because, on some level, we believe their words might be true. When someone ignores us, we feel invisible because we have tied our value to their acknowledgement. When someone rejects us, we feel small because we have given them the power to define us. But here is the truth the Buddha pointed toward. No one's words or actions can truly add to or subtract from your worth. They can only make you believe they can. Imagine a diamond lying in the dirt. It may be covered in mud, trampled by feet, or hidden from sight, but its value is unchanged. Whether it is placed in a crown or left in the ground, it remains a diamond. Your worth is like that. It exists regardless of how others treat you, regardless of your circumstances, and regardless of whether anyone else recognizes it. Realizing this is like finding an anchor within yourself, an anchor that keeps you steady no matter how strong the storms outside. When you begin to truly understand that your worth is unshakable, the way you respond to life changes dramatically. Criticism no longer feels like a personal attack. It becomes feedback you can either use for growth or let pass without harm. Praise no longer becomes something you chase desperately. It becomes a kind acknowledgement that you can appreciate without needing it to feel whole. You stop living for the approval of others and start living in alignment with your own principles. And in doing so, you become free from one of the most powerful forms of emotional control, the fear of disapproval. The Buddha taught that clinging to external validation is a source of suffering because it places your happiness in something you cannot control. People's opinions can shift in an instant. Today they may admire you, tomorrow they may condemn you. If your self-worth is tied to their approval, you will be pulled up and down like a leaf in the wind. But when your worth comes from within, the wind loses its power over you. You can walk through both praise and blame with the same calmness, because neither defines you. This understanding also protects you from the pain of comparison. Much suffering comes from measuring ourselves against others, comparing our appearance, our possessions, our achievements, our relationships. But comparison is a game without a finish line. There will always be someone with more and someone with less. If your worth depends on where you stand in that comparison, you will never feel secure. Recognizing that your value is inherent allows you to step out of the comparison trap entirely. You can admire someone else's strengths without feeling diminished, and you can acknowledge your own strengths without feeling superior. Living with the knowledge of your unshakable worth also changes the way you handle mistakes and failures. Without this understanding, failure feels like proof that you are not good enough. You may avoid challenges for fear of what failure would say about you, but when you know your worth is constant, failure loses its power to define you. It becomes simply an event, something to learn from, not a verdict on your value. This gives you the courage to take risks, try new things, and grow without the constant fear of being less in the eyes of others. One of the most powerful practices for remembering your worth is mindfulness. The more you are present with yourself, observing your thoughts, feelings, and actions without judgment, the more you realize that you are not your passing emotions, your temporary circumstances, or your ever-changing roles in life. You are the awareness that experiences them all, and that awareness, untouched by praise or blame, success or failure, is where your true worth resides. Another way to strengthen this understanding is through compassion toward yourself. Many people treat themselves with a level of harshness they would never direct toward someone they love. They speak to themselves with words they would never say to a friend. But if you can shift this inner voice from criticism to kindness, you begin to create an internal environment where your worth can be felt, not just understood intellectually. When you make a mistake, instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," you say, "I made a mistake, but I'm still worthy of love and respect." This self-compassion does not make you complacent, it makes you resilient. It is also important to see that recognizing your worth is not arrogance. Arrogance says, "I am better than others." True self-worth says, "I am equal in value to others, just as they are equal in value to me." It is not about elevating yourself above anyone. It is about standing on solid ground and allowing others to stand there too. When you know your worth, you can celebrate others without feeling threatened, and you can accept their success without it becoming a reflection on your own. Buddhist wisdom also teaches that the unshakable worth of all beings comes from the same source, our shared nature. Just as the ocean contains countless waves, each unique yet all made of the same water, every person is a unique expression of the same fundamental nature. No wave is more ocean than another. No person is more human than another. Remembering this helps you honor your own worth without diminishing anyone else's. When you live from this place of knowing, you move through the world differently. You no longer need to prove yourself in every interaction. You no longer shapeshift to fit into the expectations of others. You no longer fear that rejection means you are unworthy, because you know that rejection is simply a mismatch between you and another person's perspective. It has nothing to do with your fundamental value. This principle also becomes a shield against those who would try to manipulate you. Many people use praise to control and criticism to weaken. But if you do not need their praise and are not defined by their criticism, their power over you dissolves. You become someone who can be guided by feedback without being enslaved by it, someone who can remain steady whether they are celebrated or doubted. And perhaps the most beautiful part of realizing your unshakable worth is the peace it brings. You stop living in constant negotiation with the world about your value. You stop defending yourself against every misunderstanding. You stop performing for approval. You simply live fully, freely, and authentically. You give your best, not because you need it to prove something, but because it is in your nature to give. You love not because you fear losing love, but because love flows naturally when it is not blocked by insecurity. The Buddha's path is one of liberation, and liberation begins here by cutting the chain that ties your sense of self to the ever-changing opinions of the world. When you finally see that your worth is as constant as the sun, shining whether or not the clouds reveal it, You become untouchable in a way that no amount of praise or criticism can alter. And in that freedom, you find not just resilience, but a deep, unshakable peace that allows you to meet life with open hands, open eyes, and an open heart. Detach from the illusion of control. One of the deepest causes of human frustration, stress, and suffering is our constant desire to control things that are, by their very nature, uncontrollable. We want people to behave in ways that suit us, events to unfold according to our plans, outcomes to match our expectations, and life to follow the script we have in our minds. And when reality refuses to cooperate, as it inevitably does, we feel disappointment, anger, or even despair. From the moment we wake up in the morning, the illusion of control is at play. We decide what we want to accomplish that day, but we cannot control whether traffic will delay us, whether someone will cancel a meeting, or whether our body will suddenly feel unwell. We plan conversations, but we cannot control how the other person will respond. We hope for certain opportunities, but we cannot control whether the timing will align. In truth, the number of things we can fully control in life is very small: our thoughts, our actions, and the attitude we bring to each moment. Yet we spend most of our mental energy trying to control everything else. Buddhism teaches that clinging to control is one of the root causes of suffering because it is a direct clash with impermanence and the unpredictable nature of reality. Life is like a river. It flows in its own direction, sometimes gently, sometimes violently, but always moving. When we try to control every current, we exhaust ourselves fighting against forces far greater than us. When we accept that we cannot stop the river, we can learn to navigate it, sometimes swimming with it, sometimes floating, and sometimes stepping to the shore to rest. Detachment from the illusion of control does not mean becoming passive or careless. It does not mean giving up on your goals, your dreams, or your responsibilities. Rather, it means shifting your focus from trying to control the outcome to controlling your approach. You still act with intention, but you release the tight grip on how things must turn out. You understand that your role is to plant the seed, water it, and care for it. But the weather, the soil, and the sunlight, the forces that determine its growth, are beyond your control. When you truly embrace this principle, you begin to notice how much tension leaves your body. You stop micromanaging every aspect of life and start living with more ease. Conversations feel lighter because you are no longer rehearsing and controlling every word. Work feels less suffocating because you are not obsessing over outcomes that depend on others. Relationships become healthier because you stop trying to mold people into your image of who they should be and start accepting them as they are. One of the clearest examples of this teaching in Buddhism is the concept of non-attachment to results, also known as karma yoga in some related traditions. You are encouraged to give your best effort in each action, but to let go of ownership over the result. This is incredibly freeing because it means your happiness is no longer held hostage by external events. If things go as you hoped, you are grateful. If they do not, you are still at peace, because you know you acted with integrity and did what you could. Think about how much of your emotional turmoil comes from resistance to what is happening. We tell ourselves, "This shouldn't be happening," or "It's not fair," or "Why can't they just do what I want?" But reality is indifferent to these thoughts. It continues as it will. The Buddha taught that much of our suffering is self-created, not by the events themselves, but by the story we tell ourselves about how those events should have been different. When you loosen your grip on control, you loosen your grip on that story. You begin to meet reality as it is, not as you demand it to be. This principle also changes how you respond to uncertainty. Most people feel anxious when they cannot predict the future because they believe they must control it in order to be safe. But when you understand that control is an illusion, Uncertainty stops being an enemy. It becomes simply the natural state of life. Instead of trying to predict every detail, you learn to prepare for possibilities while remaining open to surprises. You realize that life's greatest gifts often come from places you could not have planned or controlled. A practical way to apply this teaching is to regularly separate what you can control from what you cannot. When faced with a challenge, ask yourself, what is within my influence here and what is beyond it? Focus your energy entirely on the part within your influence, your effort, your attitude, your choices, and consciously release the rest. This is not something you do once and forget. It is a daily, even moment-to-moment practice. Every time you catch yourself tensing over something you cannot change, you gently let it go, like setting down a heavy bag you've been carrying for no reason. The art of detaching from control is also deeply connected to trust. Trust in the natural flow of life, trust in your own resilience, and, for many, trust in something greater than themselves. It is about knowing that even if things do not go according to your plan, you will still find a way forward. You have survived challenges you never saw coming before, and you will survive them again. This trust allows you to step into each day with a sense of openness rather than fear. It's important to recognize that detachment from control is not detachment from responsibility. You still act with care, keep your commitments, and work toward meaningful goals. The difference is that you do these things without clinging to the illusion that you can command every variable in the process. You become more like a skilled sailor. You cannot control the wind or the sea, but you can adjust your sails, navigate wisely, and choose how to respond to the conditions. Over time, this way of living transforms not only your inner peace, but also your effectiveness in the world. Ironically, when you stop trying to control everything, you often make better decisions. Why? Because your mind is no longer clouded by frustration, fear, or the desperation to force an outcome. You can see the situation more clearly, adapt more quickly, and act with greater wisdom. And perhaps most beautifully, letting go of control deepens your relationships. When you stop trying to change people, you give them the freedom to be themselves. This creates space for genuine connection instead of constant tension. You may not agree with everything they do, but you no longer waste your energy trying to force them into your vision of who they should be. Instead, you focus on how you can relate to them in a way that is healthy for both of you, with boundaries where needed and openness where possible. The Buddha's path is a path of liberation, and liberation is impossible as long as you are chained to the need for control. Every link in that chain is a demand. This must happen. They must do this. Life must go this way. When even one of those demands is not met, and they often won't be, the chain pulls tight and you suffer. But when you release those demands, the chain falls away and you find yourself lighter, freer, and more at peace with the unfolding of life. Detaching from the illusion of control does not mean life will always give you what you want. It means you will find peace and stability regardless of what life gives you. And in that stability, you discover a quiet strength, a trust that no matter what currents the river of life carries you through, you have the wisdom, adaptability, and inner calm to navigate them. Accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. One of the most profound and life-changing lessons in Buddhist philosophy is the understanding that so much of our suffering does not come from life itself, but from our resistance to life as it is. Events happen, people act in certain ways, situations unfold unexpectedly, and instead of seeing them clearly, we often superimpose a layer of judgment, demand, or wishful thinking over them. We tell ourselves, it shouldn't be this way, they should be different, or this is not how my life was supposed to go. And with every should we impose on reality, we create a gap between how things are and how we want them to be. That gap is where suffering grows. The Buddha taught that pain is an unavoidable part of life. Loss, illness, aging, and disappointment will touch everyone, but suffering is optional. Suffering is the mental and emotional turmoil we create when we reject reality and insist it must match our expectations. This is why two people can experience the same event and have vastly different emotional responses. One may spiral into despair, clinging to how things should have been, while the other, though feeling the sting of pain, accepts the situation and begins to adapt. The difference is not in the event itself, but in their relationship to it. To accept reality as it is does not mean to approve of everything that happens or to become passive in the face of injustice. Acceptance is not resignation. Rather, it is the clear recognition of what is true in this moment, without layering it with denial, fantasy, or resistance. If a storm is coming, acceptance is acknowledging that fact so you can prepare, rather than standing in the rain insisting the sun should be shining. In this way, acceptance is a foundation for wise action. You cannot change something effectively until you first see it clearly for what it is. So why is acceptance so difficult? Partly because our minds are attached to the stories we create about how things are supposed to be. We form mental images of the perfect partner, the ideal career, the life we believe we deserve. We make plans and assume they will unfold as imagined. When life deviates from those stories, we feel betrayed. We resist because letting go of the story feels like letting go of hope. But in truth, clinging to the story keeps us trapped in frustration and prevents us from dealing with reality as it is. Think about a time in your life when you resisted accepting something. Maybe you were in a relationship that was clearly over, but you clung to the hope that the other person would change. Maybe you lost a job and spent months replaying the unfairness of it instead of seeking new opportunities. Maybe you faced a health challenge and focused only on how it wasn't supposed to happen to you. How much energy did that resistance consume? How much did it keep you stuck, unable to take meaningful steps forward? Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means facing the truth without distortion so that your actions can be rooted in reality instead of fantasy. The Buddha compared this to pulling out an arrow. If you are shot with an arrow, your first instinct should be to remove it, not to stand there demanding to know who shot it, why, and from what distance. Those questions may have value later, but in the immediate moment, what matters is accepting that the arrow is there so you can deal with it. Denying it, wishing it away, or arguing that it shouldn't be there only allows the poison to spread. When you cultivate acceptance, you stop wasting energy on fighting what already is. This frees your mind to focus on what can be done. If someone has wronged you, acceptance does not mean you condone their behavior. It means you acknowledge it happened so you can choose your response wisely. If you lose something dear to you, acceptance does not erase the grief. It allows you to feel it fully without layering it with bitterness or denial. If life changes unexpectedly, acceptance allows you to adapt instead of being paralyzed by what you hoped would happen instead. In Buddhism, the practice of acceptance is closely tied to mindfulness. Mindfulness trains you to see each moment as it is, without judgment or attachment. It teaches you to observe your thoughts and emotions as they arise, noticing when you are resisting what is and gently guiding yourself back to clarity. Over time, you become skilled at catching the subtle forms of resistance, those moments when you think, "This is unfair," "I can't believe this is happening," or "It shouldn't be like this." You begin to see these thoughts not as truth, but as mental habits you can release. There is great freedom in this. Imagine carrying a heavy box through a crowded street, insisting that it must be light because you don't want it to be heavy. Your insistence doesn't change the weight, it only exhausts you further. But the moment you acknowledge, "This box is heavy," You can adjust your grip, set it down for a rest, or ask for help. Acceptance allows you to work with reality instead of against it. Acceptance also transforms relationships. So much conflict comes from our desire to control others, wanting them to think, feel, or act in ways that align with our preferences. We may try to mold them into our idea of the right way to be, and when they don't comply, we feel angry or hurt. But when you practice acceptance, you begin to see that other people are on their own paths, shaped by their own experiences, conditioning, and choices. You can still set boundaries, express your needs, or even choose to walk away, but you stop exhausting yourself trying to rewrite who they are. You accept that their reality is theirs, just as yours is yours. This acceptance extends inward as well. Many of us resist reality not only in the outer world, but within ourselves. We resist our flaws, our mistakes, our limitations. We wish we were more confident, more talented, more successful, or more disciplined, and we beat ourselves up for not being there yet. But self-acceptance is the foundation for growth. When you accept yourself as you are, you see clearly what can be improved without drowning in shame. You stop pretending you are somewhere you're not, and from that honesty, you can take real steps toward where you want to be. Practicing acceptance also means making peace with uncertainty. Life is unpredictable. Even the most carefully laid plans can be overturned in a moment. When you cling to certainty, you suffer every time it slips away. But when you accept uncertainty as part of life, you stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as the space where possibilities live. You trust that whatever comes, you will meet it as it is, not as you wish it to be, and you will adapt. Of course, acceptance is not something you master once and then never struggle with again. It is a lifelong practice, because the mind's habit of resistance is deeply ingrained. But each time you choose to accept rather than resist, you strengthen your ability to live in harmony with reality. You begin to notice that moments of acceptance feel lighter, calmer, and more spacious. You see that life flows more easily when you are not constantly trying to push against it. The ultimate gift of acceptance is peace. When you stop fighting reality, you stop fighting yourself. You no longer waste your energy wishing for a different past or fearing a different future. You meet each moment with open eyes and an open heart, ready to respond rather than resist. And in that space, you find the freedom that the Buddha spoke of, the freedom that comes from living in truth, without the chains of should and shouldn't, and without the constant battle against what already is. When you accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be, you become unshakable. Life can still surprise you, challenge you, and even break your heart at times, but it cannot break your spirit. You are no longer at war with the world. You are moving with it, working with it, and finding your place within its ever-changing flow. And that, perhaps, is one of the greatest strengths you can ever possess. Master the art of letting go. In the journey of life, one of the hardest lessons to learn is that not everything we hold on to is meant to stay with us. We hold on to people, memories, grudges, expectations, regrets, possessions, and identities long after they have served their purpose, often without realizing the weight we are carrying. Letting go is one of the most central teachings of Buddhism, yet it is also one of the most misunderstood. Many think letting go means losing, giving up, or being indifferent. But in truth, letting go is not about loving less. It is about loving with freedom rather than with chains. It is not about being careless. It is about being wise enough to know when carrying something is hurting you more than it is helping you. The Buddha taught that clinging is one of the primary causes of human suffering. We cling to pleasure, wanting it to last forever. We cling to relationships, wanting people to stay exactly as they are. We cling to identities, believing we must always be the same person we were yesterday. We cling to possessions, fearing what it would mean to lose them. But life, by its very nature, is impermanent. Everything changes, people grow, circumstances shift, seasons turn, and what was once right for us may no longer be. When we cling to what is already moving away from us, we are pulled into suffering, like someone refusing to let go of a rope that is burning their hands. Letting go begins with recognizing what we are holding. Sometimes it is obvious we know we are clinging to an old relationship, a past mistake, or a dream that is no longer alive. Other times, it is hidden. We may not realize how attached we are to the idea of who we should be, or how tightly we grip the need to be liked, or how invested we are in controlling outcomes that are beyond our influence. These forms of clinging are subtle, but they shape our thoughts, decisions, and emotions every day. There are many reasons we struggle to let go. One is fear, the fear of emptiness, of uncertainty, of what will happen if we loosen our grip. Another is identity, believing that what we hold defines who we are, so if we let it go, we will lose ourselves. And then there is habit. Clinging is simply what the mind has been trained to do. It's not that we consciously choose to hold on, it's that we've never learned another way. Buddhist practice offers that other way. It begins with mindfulness, seeing clearly what you are holding and how it affects you. When you observe your own mind with honesty, you may notice that certain attachments do not bring you the peace or joy you imagined. You may realize that holding on is actually creating tension, anxiety, or pain. This awareness is the first step toward loosening your grip. Letting go is not about forcing yourself to detach overnight. It is a gradual process, like unclenching a fist that has been tightly closed for years. You start by loosening one finger at a time. If you are holding on to resentment, you might begin by acknowledging that holding it is hurting you more than it hurts the other person. If you are clinging to a relationship that has ended, you might begin by accepting that the person has changed or moved on, and that this is part of the natural flow of life. If you are stuck in regret, you might begin by seeing that the past cannot be changed, but your relationship to it can. One of the most powerful truths in Buddhism is that letting go creates space for healing, for growth, for something new to enter your life. When you are full of what no longer serves you, there is no room for what could serve you now. This is why the act of letting go is often followed by a deep sense of lightness. It is like setting down a heavy bag you did not realize you had been carrying. Your steps become easier, your mind clearer, and your heart freer. Letting go also transforms how you experience love. Without attachment, love becomes more open, generous, and resilient. When you love someone without clinging, you can appreciate them fully without fearing their absence. You can support their growth even if it takes them in a different direction. You can be grateful for the moments you share, knowing they are precious because they are not guaranteed. This kind of love does not bind, it liberates. The art of letting go also applies to your own self-image. Many of us are trapped by old versions of ourselves, identities shaped by childhood experiences, past mistakes, or outdated goals. We cling to who we were because it feels safe, but in doing so, we resist who we are becoming. The Buddha taught that the self is not a fixed entity. It is a process, constantly changing. Letting go of the need to be a certain type of person allows you to live more authentically in the present. Of course, letting go does not mean forgetting. The past has its place. It holds lessons, memories, and moments that shaped you. But the difference between honoring the past and clinging to it is like the difference between holding a photograph and carrying a heavy trunk everywhere you go. One is light and meaningful, the other burdens you until you can barely move forward. In practice, letting go often requires forgiveness, not necessarily reconciliation with others, but forgiveness as an inner act of releasing resentment. Forgiveness is not about excusing harm. It is about choosing not to carry it inside you any longer. It is an act of self-compassion that says, I will not let this wound define me or keep me trapped in the past. Another essential part of letting go is surrender, not as weakness, but as wisdom. Surrender means recognizing the limits of your control and allowing life to unfold without constant resistance. It means trusting that you can meet whatever comes, even if it is not what you expected. Surrender is not about giving up on your goals. It is about releasing your grip on the outcomes and focusing on your actions in the present moment. Buddhist meditation is one of the most effective tools for practicing letting go. When you meditate, you notice thoughts and emotions arise. Some are pleasant and you want to hold them. Others are unpleasant and you want to push them away. But meditation teaches you to do neither, to simply observe and let them pass, like clouds moving across the sky. This skill translates into daily life. You learn to notice an urge to cling or resist, and to choose instead to let it pass. Letting go can be especially challenging when it comes to relationships. Sometimes we hold on to people not because they are good for us, but because they are familiar. The thought of life without them feels like stepping into the unknown. But the unknown is not inherently dangerous, it is simply unexplored. And more often than not, it is in the unknown that we find growth, new connections, and deeper understanding. Ultimately, the art of letting go is about freedom. It is about releasing yourself from the chains of the past, from the weight of unfulfilled expectations, from the grip of fear, and from the endless struggle to hold on to what cannot be held. It is about meeting each moment with open hands, ready to receive what it offers, and just as ready to release it when it is time. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence reminds us that everything we have, everything we are, and everyone we love will change. Letting go is not about rejecting this truth. It is about living fully within it. When you master this art, you find that life becomes lighter, love becomes freer, and peace becomes your natural state. You discover that you do not need to control the flow of life, you only need to stop clinging and allow yourself to move with it. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about letting go is that it is never the end. It is always the beginning of something else. Every time you release what no longer serves you, you create space for what can. Every time you unclench your grip, you open your hand to receive. And in that space, in that openness, life has room to surprise you in ways you could never have planned. Train your mind to find peace in uncertainty. One of the most difficult truths for the human mind to accept is that life is inherently uncertain. We do not know what tomorrow will bring. We do not know how our relationships will evolve, what opportunities will come or go, or even how many breaths we have left. We spend enormous amounts of energy trying to predict, control, and plan for every possible outcome. But the truth is, no matter how carefully we prepare, the future will always remain largely unknown. For many, this reality is a source of deep anxiety. The mind clings to certainty because it equates it with safety. If we know what is coming, we feel prepared. If we do not, we feel vulnerable. But Buddhist wisdom teaches us that peace is not found in controlling the uncertainty of life, it is found in accepting it. In fact, the more we try to cling to certainty, the more unstable and fearful we become. Life is like walking across a river on stepping stones. Sometimes the stones are steady, sometimes they wobble, and sometimes the path changes completely. If you spend all your time trying to control the movement of the stones, you will exhaust yourself and likely fall in. But if you learn to move with awareness, to balance yourself moment by moment, and to accept that some stones will shift beneath your feet, you will find a way across without fear paralyzing you. The reason uncertainty feels so threatening is because the mind attaches stories to it. When we cannot see the future clearly, we imagine the worst. We replay all the things that could go wrong, all the ways we could fail, all the losses we could suffer. We convince ourselves that by worrying about these possibilities, we are somehow protecting ourselves. But in reality, worry does not protect, it drains us. It forces us to live through imagined pain over and over again, long before anything has even happened. And often, what we feared most never happens at all, while we have already paid the emotional price for it. The Buddha taught that the root of much suffering lies in our resistance to the way things are. Uncertainty is not the enemy, it is simply the nature of reality. Every moment of our lives has been uncertain, even if we have convinced ourselves otherwise. The plans we made that worked out exactly as we hoped were the exception, not the rule. Yet when things turn out differently than expected, we act as though something unnatural has occurred. Accepting uncertainty means understanding that it is not a flaw in life, it is life itself. Training your mind to find peace in uncertainty begins with shifting your relationship to it. Instead of seeing it as a threat, you begin to see it as a space of possibility. Because the future is not fixed, it can surprise you in ways both challenging and beautiful. Some of the most important moments of your life, meeting someone who changes your path, discovering a new passion, finding an unexpected opportunity, likely came from circumstances you could not have predicted. Uncertainty holds not only the possibility of difficulty, but also the possibility of joy. The practice of mindfulness is essential here. When your mind races ahead into the unknown, mindfulness gently brings it back to now. Right now, you are breathing. Right now, you are safe. Right now, nothing in this exact moment is unbearable. The more you anchor yourself in the present, the less power the imagined future has over you. You begin to see that you do not need to handle the entire future at once. You only need to handle this moment. It is also important to see that uncertainty is not something to solve. Many people approach it as a problem that needs fixing, thinking, if I can just figure everything out, then I will finally feel calm. But this calm is always temporary because life will inevitably present new uncertainties. The more effective approach is to build the inner stability to remain calm, even when things are unknown. This is like learning to be steady in a small boat, not by waiting for the sea to be perfectly still, but by learning how to keep your balance in the waves. One powerful way to train this stability is to deliberately step into small uncertainties. Try something you have never done before. Speak to someone you do not know. Explore a place without planning every detail. Notice the discomfort that arises and watch it without judgment. Over time, you will see that you can feel uncertain and still be okay. This gradually rewires your mind to stop treating uncertainty as a danger signal. Another practice is to separate what you can control from what you cannot. Uncertainty often feels overwhelming because we mix the two together. We try to control outcomes that are completely outside our influence, and when we inevitably fail, we feel powerless. But if you focus only on what you can control, your actions, your attitude, your decisions, you regain a sense of agency without falling into the trap of trying to control the uncontrollable. This shift in focus is not about ignoring reality, it is about directing your energy where it will actually make a difference. Faith also plays a role, not necessarily religious faith, but a deep trust in the unfolding of life. This trust is built through experience. You remember the times when something you feared turned out to be nothing, when something unexpected brought you unexpected blessings, when a closed door led you to a better one. Over time, you start to trust that while you may not always get what you want, you will often get what you need. This trust does not erase uncertainty, but it softens its edges. It is also important to notice that living with uncertainty is not a new skill. It is something you have been doing all along. Every day of your life has been uncertain, yet you have navigated it. Even when you thought you were certain, You were not. Life was still full of unknowns. Realizing this helps you see that you are already capable of living with uncertainty. You are simply learning to do it with more awareness and less fear. In Buddhist practice, there is a concept called don't know mind. It is the willingness to meet each moment without needing to label it, predict it, or control it. It is a mind that is curious instead of fearful, open instead of defensive. When you live with don't know mind, you begin to see life less as a problem to solve and more as a mystery to experience. This doesn't mean you stop making plans or preparing for the future. It means you hold those plans lightly, knowing they may change, and you remain flexible enough to adapt when they do. Finding peace in uncertainty also requires releasing the idea that you need absolute clarity before taking action. Waiting until every detail is certain often means never starting at all. Instead, you learn to take the next step with the information you have, trusting that the path will reveal itself as you walk it. Life rarely hands you a complete map, it gives you one step at a time. Ultimately, training your mind to find peace in uncertainty is about shifting from control to adaptability, from fear to trust, from resistance to acceptance. It is about learning to meet the unknown with the same openness you meet the known, knowing that both are simply parts of the same unfolding reality. When you can do this, uncertainty stops being something you endure. It becomes something you can even welcome, because it holds the potential for growth, transformation, and discovery. When you reach this place, life feels lighter. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to wrestle the future into submission. You stop needing every answer in advance. You start moving through life with curiosity, resilience, and a quiet confidence that you will be able to meet whatever comes. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to realize that the unknown is not empty. It is full of possibility, waiting for you to step into it with open eyes and an open heart. Become the observer, not the prisoner, of your mind. One of the most transformative truths in Buddhist teaching is that you are not your thoughts. This is not just a poetic statement, it is a direct, liberating reality that changes the way you experience yourself and the world. For most people, their mind feels like an inseparable part of who they are. The thoughts that pass through it, whether they are joyful, anxious, angry, or self-critical, are taken as truth, as reality, as a reflection of me. If the mind says, "I'm not good enough," it feels like I am not good enough. If the mind says, "I can't handle this," it feels like I cannot handle this. We live as prisoners of our mental chatter, allowing it to dictate our emotions, decisions, and identity. Buddhism offers a different way. You are not your thoughts, but the awareness in which those thoughts appear. Your mind is like the sky, vast and open, and your thoughts are like clouds, sometimes light and drifting, sometimes heavy and stormy, but always passing. No matter how dense the clouds become, the sky itself is untouched. In the same way, no matter how turbulent your thoughts, the awareness behind them remains pure, spacious, and still. The problem is that most of us have been trained since childhood to identify completely with our thoughts. This identification creates a constant inner drama, an endless stream of mental commentary that we believe without question. It is as if we have handed the steering wheel of our life to a voice in our head that is often reactive, fearful, and conditioned by past experiences. This voice is shaped by everything you've been told, everything you've experienced, and everything you've feared. Some of it is helpful thoughts can guide, plan, and warn, but much of it is repetitive noise, running on old scripts that may no longer serve you. Becoming the observer of your mind means stepping back from this voice. It means developing the ability to watch your thoughts arise and pass without automatically believing them or acting on them. It means noticing when your mind tells you a story and realizing that it is just a story, not the absolute truth. This shift is not about silencing the mind or stopping thoughts altogether, something that is nearly impossible, but about changing your relationship to them. Imagine sitting in a movie theater, completely absorbed in the film. You feel the characters' emotions, you believe the story, and you forget you are watching a projection on a screen. Now imagine that suddenly you remember. You are in a theater, sitting in a chair, watching images made of light. The story continues, but it no longer has the same power over you because you see it for what it is. This is what it means to become the observer of your mind. You still experience thoughts, but you see them as mental events, not as your identity. This skill brings tremendous freedom. For example, when anger arises, the prisoner of the mind is swept away by it speaking harsh words, making rash decisions, and later regretting them. The observer notices, anger is here. By naming it, you create a space between you and the emotion. You can decide whether to act on it, and often you will choose not to, knowing it will pass. When self-doubt appears, the prisoner believes, I am not capable, and shrinks back from challenges. The observer recognizes, here is a thought of self-doubt, and remembers that a thought is not a command. The Buddha taught mindfulness precisely for this purpose, to cultivate awareness of the mind without becoming entangled in it. In mindfulness meditation, you sit quietly and watch your breath, your body, your thoughts. You do not chase them or fight them, you simply observe. At first, this can be challenging, because the mind is restless and constantly seeks your attention. But with practice, you begin to notice patterns. You see how certain thoughts trigger certain emotions. You see how the same worries and fantasies repeat day after day. You see that thoughts arise without you choosing them, and that they disappear on their own if you do not feed them. This observation begins to weaken the mind's control over you. Thoughts still come, but they no longer hook you in the same way. You begin to experience what the Buddha described as freedom from the tyranny of the mind. You realize that you can be aware of a thought without having to follow it wherever it leads. This is not suppression, it is liberation. Becoming the observer also changes your relationship with pain. Physical or emotional pain is real, but much of our suffering comes from the mental stories we attach to it. For example, the pain of a breakup is intensified by thoughts like, I will never be happy again, or this means I am unlovable. These are not facts, they are interpretations. When you are the prisoner of your mind, these thoughts feel like truth and deepen your suffering. When you are the observer, you notice them, recognize them as thoughts, and let them go. The pain may still be there, but it is not multiplied by the mind's commentary. Another profound effect of being the observer is that you become less reactive to other people's behavior. Often, what someone says to us triggers an immediate reaction because our mind takes it personally and spins a story about it. If someone criticizes you, your mind might jump to, they don't respect me, or I must not be good enough. As the prisoner of your mind, you react defensively or withdraw in hurt. As the observer, you notice, a critical comment was made, and now a thought of inadequacy has arisen. This awareness gives you the power to respond from clarity instead of from the heat of the moment. It is important to remember that your thoughts are not you, they are mental habits. Many of these habits were formed long ago based on past experiences, societal conditioning, and cultural influences. Some thoughts may not even be yours originally. They are echoes of what others have told you. Yet without awareness, we carry them as if they are unquestionable truths. By becoming the observer, you begin to see which thoughts serve you and which ones do not. You can choose to release the unhelpful ones, just as you would let go of any burden that no longer needs to be carried. A practical way to develop this skill in daily life is to use gentle labeling. When a thought arises, you might say to yourself, thinking, planning, judging, remembering. This simple act shifts you from being inside the thought to being outside of it, watching it. Over time, this becomes more natural, and you can remain in the observer's seat even during challenging situations. One of the deepest shifts that comes from being the observer is the realization that awareness itself is peaceful. Thoughts can be turbulent, but awareness is calm. Awareness is the space in which everything happens, and it is untouched by the content of what happens. This is why experienced meditators often describe a sense of stillness. Even in the midst of intense emotions, the stillness belongs to awareness, not to the mind. The Buddha often used the metaphor of the lotus flower, which grows in muddy water yet remains unsoiled. Your awareness is like that lotus. It exists in the midst of the mind's chaos, but remains pure and clear. By identifying with the lotus instead of the mud, you discover that peace is not something you have to create. It is something you uncover by stepping out of the prison of identification with thought. In time, becoming the observer transforms your entire experience of life. You stop feeling like a small boat tossed by the waves of every thought and emotion. Instead, you become the vast ocean in which the waves arise and dissolve. The waves are still there, but they no longer threaten to sink you. You can watch them, appreciate their beauty or their power, and let them pass, knowing that you are something much greater and steadier than any passing thought. And perhaps the most liberating part of all is this. When you become the observer, you stop needing to control or fix every thought. You no longer believe that the presence of a negative thought means something is wrong with you. You understand that thoughts are like weather, they come and go, and none of them define the sky. In this freedom, you can live with greater clarity, compassion, and presence, unshaken by the endless chatter of the mind. Master the art of letting go before life forces you to. One of the most difficult lessons to truly live, not just to hear, not just to agree with, but to actually embody, is the art of letting go. In Buddhist teaching, attachment is described as one of the root causes of human suffering. We cling to people, to experiences, to our identity, to our possessions, and even to our pain. We hold on tightly, convinced that without these things we would lose ourselves. And yet, if you live long enough, life will make it clear that nothing stays forever, not the people you love, not the circumstances you rely on, not even the self you think you are. You can resist this truth, fighting every loss, gripping what's slipping away until your hands ache from the strain, or you can learn the art of letting go gracefully, consciously, and with a heart that remains open even as it releases. The choice is always yours, though most people don't realize they even have a choice until life forces them to let go. And when life does force it, when death, change, or distance remove something from your grasp, it often hurts far more if you never learn to release on your own. In Buddhism, letting go is not an act of giving up. It's not a defeat or a sign of weakness. It's a recognition of truth, that all things are impermanent, that clinging will not stop change, and that your peace depends on your ability to flow with life rather than to resist it. The Buddha compared clinging to holding a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at someone while you hold it. It is you who gets burned. Think about the many ways we hold on unnecessarily. We hold on to old grudges, replaying betrayals in our mind as if reliving them will somehow undo them. We hold on to our past identity, resisting growth because we fear losing who we once were. We hold on to relationships that no longer nourish us because we are afraid of being alone. We even hold on to pain because it has become familiar, and we don't know who we would be without it. Every form of clinging binds us to suffering. The art of letting go begins with the courage to see impermanence clearly. Everything you have today will change, in one way or another. People will grow, move away, or pass on. Opportunities will appear, and disappear. Your body will age, your mind will evolve, and your desires will shift. This is not a tragedy, it is simply the way life moves. The seasons teach us this every year. The cherry blossoms bloom in their brief, breathtaking beauty, and then they fall. The autumn leaves blaze in color, and then they drift to the ground. The lesson is that beauty is not diminished by its impermanence. If anything, its fleeting nature makes it more precious. When you truly understand this, you begin to hold things more lightly. You still love deeply, but you do not grip desperately. You enjoy moments fully, but you do not try to trap them in time. You allow people to be who they are, without trying to mold them to your expectations. And when the time comes for something to end, you release it without hatred, without bitterness, without clinging to what was. Of course, this is easier said than done. Letting go is a practice, not a one-time decision. It starts with small things. You might notice yourself getting frustrated because your day didn't go according to plan, and instead of replaying the disappointment all evening, you take a deep breath and say, "It's okay. This, too, has passed." You might remember a hurtful comment and feel the urge to dwell on it, but instead, you acknowledge the sting and then shift your attention to the present moment. Over time, you train your mind to loosen its grip automatically. A powerful part of this practice is learning to let go not just of things and people, but also of stories, the mental narratives we tell ourselves. For example, you might carry a story about how someone ruined your life, and that story colors every interaction you have. Or you might hold on to the belief that you must always be perfect to be worthy of love. These stories are not reality, they are interpretations, and yet they shape your reality until you learn to release them. The Buddha's metaphor of the raft explains this perfectly. Imagine you are crossing a river and you build a sturdy raft to help you reach the other shore. Once you arrive, would you keep carrying the raft on your back for the rest of your journey? Of course not. It served its purpose, and now it is time to let it go. In the same way, many of the beliefs, habits, and attachments that once served you may no longer be useful. But if you keep carrying them, they will weigh you down. Letting go does not mean forgetting or erasing the past. It means acknowledging it without letting it dictate your present or your future. It means freeing yourself from the mental chains that keep you circling the same emotional patterns. This freedom does not come from pushing things away, but from seeing them clearly, accepting what is, and choosing not to hold on when the holding causes harm. One of the deepest challenges in letting go is with relationships. Love naturally creates bonds, and it is natural to feel pain when those bonds change or end. But clinging is not the same as loving. Clinging says, "I need you to stay the same so I can feel safe." Love says, "I want you to grow, even if it takes you away from me." Clinging says, "Without you, I am lost." Love says, "I am grateful for the time we shared, and I wish you well on your path." When you love without clinging, you allow both yourself and the other person to be free. Another area where letting go is transformative is in self-image. Many people are prisoners of who they think they are supposed to be. They cling to labels successful, intelligent, attractive, strong, and fear anything that threatens those labels. But who you are is not fixed. It is always unfolding. Letting go of a rigid self-image allows you to adapt, to grow, to meet life as it is instead of forcing it to match a story. The irony is that letting go often brings more into your life, not less. When your hands are clenched around the past, they are too full to receive the present. When your mind is stuck on what you lost, it cannot see what is arriving. Letting go creates space, and in that space, new opportunities, relationships, and joys can enter. This does not mean you should be detached to the point of apathy. Letting go is not about not caring. It's about caring without being consumed. You still invest in relationships, work, and dreams, but you do so with an open hand, knowing that change is inevitable. You savor what is here now without demanding that it stay forever. To practice letting go in daily life, start by observing your attachments. Notice what you resist releasing and ask yourself why. Is it fear of the unknown? Fear of being alone? Fear of losing part of your identity? Then gently challenge those fears. Remind yourself that you have survived every change so far and that you will survive this one too. Use mindfulness to anchor yourself in the present so you are not living in the shadow of what has passed. Meditation is a powerful tool for this practice. Sit quietly and imagine holding whatever you are attached to in your hands. Feel the weight of it. Then, in your mind, slowly open your hands and let it go. Watch it float away, drift down a river, dissolve into the air. Notice the lightness that follows. Repeat this as often as needed until the grip loosens naturally. Over time, you may find that letting go becomes less about effort and more about trust. Trust in life's flow, trust in your own resilience, trust that what is meant for you will come and stay, and what is not will leave. This trust does not eliminate grief or sadness when things change, but it prevents those feelings from hardening into bitterness or despair. Mastering the art of letting go means you stop fighting reality. You stop trying to freeze moments or control outcomes. You live in alignment with the truth of impermanence, which is not a curse but a teacher. Everything changes, and because everything changes, every moment is unique, precious, and worth living fully. When you understand this, you no longer fear letting go, because you see that in release there is not just loss, there is also freedom. Become the master of your inner weather. Life is not lived in the events themselves, it is lived in the space between the event and your reaction. Two people can face the same storm, yet one remains calm and steady while the other is swept away in panic and despair. The difference is not in the storm itself, but in the inner weather each person carries. And this is where one of the most transformative Buddhist principles comes into play. Learning to become the master of your inner weather so that nothing external can completely dictate the climate of your mind. When we speak of inner weather, we mean the emotional and mental atmosphere within you. Some days, it feels like sunshine, hopeful, light, and warm. Other days, it feels like dark clouds, heavy, tense, and restless. Often, we allow the external world to act as the puppet master of our internal states. A single insult can turn our skies grey. A minor inconvenience can brew a storm of frustration. A passing success can make the sun shine, but the moment it fades, the clouds return. If you live like this, you become a prisoner to the unpredictable shifts of the outside world, tossed around by forces beyond your control. Buddhist wisdom teaches that while you may not always choose the weather outside, you can always cultivate the weather inside. This is not a poetic metaphor alone. It is a real, trainable skill. Just as a skilled sailor learns to navigate the sea regardless of whether the waters are calm or violent, you can learn to navigate your own mind, keeping your internal balance steady no matter what the world throws at you. The first step in mastering your inner weather is to deeply understand that emotions, like weather patterns, are impermanent. No storm lasts forever. No sunny day is eternal. Every emotion you feel, whether joy, anger, sadness, or excitement, arises, peaks, and fades. The problem is not the emotion itself, but our tendency to identify with it completely as if it defines us. You may say, "I am angry," as though anger is your identity, instead of saying, "Anger is present in me right now." This shift in language may seem small, but it changes everything. It reminds you that emotions are visitors, not permanent residents. When you see emotions this way, you begin to treat them like passing weather. If it's raining, you may need to carry an umbrella. If it's sunny, you may enjoy the warmth, but you do not curse the sky for changing. You accept that the sky is vast and unchanging above, while the clouds move through it. In the same way, your deeper self, the awareness beneath your thoughts and feelings, remains constant, while the moods, desires, and fears drift across it. Another key part of mastering your inner weather is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment, without immediately reacting to them. Imagine sitting by a window, watching the rain fall. You don't try to stop it or make it rain harder, you simply notice it. In the same way, when anger arises, you observe it without rushing to speak or act. You notice how it feels in your body, the tension in your jaw, the heat in your chest, without letting it dictate your behavior. You give it space to pass naturally. This does not mean suppressing your emotions. Suppression is like pushing a storm underground. It will eventually resurface with greater force. Instead, mindfulness allows emotions to pass through you without sticking. You acknowledge them fully, but you do not let them control your decisions. This is how you remain calm in situations where others lose themselves. One of the greatest tests of your inner weather mastery comes when people try to provoke you. In life, there will always be those who want to see you shaken, who thrive on stirring your emotional waters. If they can trigger you, they can control you. But when you refuse to give them that control, when their words and actions cannot create a storm within you, they lose their power entirely. This is not about indifference. It is about sovereignty over your own mind. In Buddhist teaching, the metaphor of the lotus in muddy water perfectly captures this. The lotus grows in murky, dirty water, yet its petals remain pure and untouched. The environment may be unpleasant, but the lotus does not allow it to stain its essence. Likewise, you can live among conflict, pettiness, and chaos without letting it poison your spirit if you choose to guard your inner weather. Guarding your inner weather also means recognizing the role of your thoughts. Thoughts are like winds. They can either fan the flames of a storm or disperse the clouds. When something unpleasant happens, your mind can feed it with stories. This always happens to me. I'm such a failure. They must hate me. These stories create thunder where there might have only been a passing drizzle. But if you catch these thoughts early and replace them with something wiser, this moment will pass. This does not define me. I can choose a better response. You shift the winds and calm the skies. It's important to remember that mastering your inner weather is not about pretending bad things don't hurt. Pain is part of life. Loss, betrayal, disappointment, these will shake you. But the mastery lies in not letting these storms define your entire inner climate. You might have moments of rain, but you do not allow weeks of flooding. You might feel the chill of sadness, but you keep the inner fire of hope alive. This is resilience, not the absence of emotion, but the ability to return to balance again and again. Daily practices help anchor this mastery. Meditation, for example, is like regular maintenance for your inner climate. Sitting in stillness, you watch your thoughts and feelings move like clouds, training yourself not to grab onto any of them. Breathing exercises can reset your nervous system when stress begins to darken your skies. Gratitude practice shifts your focus to what is bright and clear, even on difficult days, and compassion toward yourself and others softens the winds of anger and judgment. One of the most powerful realizations in this journey is that your inner weather often influences the outer weather of your life. When you remain calm and centered, your presence has a stabilizing effect on those around you. Your relationships improve because you are no longer reacting impulsively. Your work becomes more effective because you are not drained by constant emotional turbulence. Opportunities come more easily because people sense steadiness in you. In this way, Mastering your inner weather is not just self-protection, it's a gift you give to everyone you interact with. Of course, this is not an overnight transformation. Even the most seasoned practitioner will have days when the winds are strong and the clouds heavy. But the difference between the untrained mind and the trained mind is this. The untrained mind gets lost in the storm, while the trained mind knows it is only passing weather. Over time, you stop fearing the storms because you know they cannot uproot you. The ultimate goal is to reach a place where your peace is not dependent on perfect conditions, just as the ocean remains vast and deep, even when its surface is stirred by waves. You learn to remain vast and deep, even when life stirs you. In this way, you live with unshakable serenity, not because life stops throwing challenges your way, but because you have become the master of your inner climate. When you master your inner weather, you gain a kind of freedom that is hard to describe until you feel it for yourself. You are no longer at the mercy of every insult, delay, or disappointment. You can walk through noise and remain quiet inside. You can face uncertainty without drowning in fear. You can meet joy without clinging to it desperately, knowing that it too will pass. And when sadness comes, you can greet it with compassion, knowing that it will pass as well. In the end, the world will always have its storms. People will say and do things you cannot control. Circumstances will shift like seasons. But if you learn to keep the sun alive in your own heart, to let the winds of thought blow gently instead of violently, and to allow emotions to pass without latching onto them, then nothing outside of you will ever have the power to fully break you. Your peace will be your own, untouchable by the changing skies. And that, in the truest sense, is freedom. Detach without closing your heart. One of the greatest misconceptions about detachment in Buddhist wisdom is that it means becoming cold, distant, or indifferent to the world. Many think that to detach is to stop caring, to build walls so high that no one can reach you, to remove yourself from emotional risk entirely. But this is a misunderstanding. True Buddhist detachment is not about rejecting life. It's about loving fully without clinging, about engaging deeply without being destroyed when things change or end. The Buddha's teachings remind us that the root of much of our suffering is attachment, our tendency to grasp at people, possessions, outcomes, and even our own identities as if they are permanent. But life is a constant flow. Everything we know and love will one day change, fade, or end. When we build our happiness on the assumption that something will stay forever, we create a ticking time bomb of pain. Detachment, then, is not about avoiding love. It's about loving in a way that is free from the chains of desperate holding. Imagine holding a butterfly in your palm. If you grasp it too tightly, you will crush it. If you leave your hand open, it may rest there peacefully for a time, but it is free to fly away when it chooses. The beauty of the butterfly lies not in possessing it forever, but in appreciating it for the time it shares with you. This is the essence of detachment, to experience fully without the compulsion to own or trap what you love. Detachment does not mean you will not feel pain when something ends. Loss is still loss. If a relationship changes, if a loved one passes away, if a dream does not come to fruition, you will feel sadness. And that sadness is a sign that you have lived and loved deeply. But detachment transforms the nature of that pain. Instead of resisting it, you allow it. Instead of holding on to the past, you open your hands and let it go, trusting that the space it leaves will one day be filled again in some other form. One of the most destructive forces in human life is the belief that our happiness depends entirely on someone else's presence, approval, or behavior. This is where attachment becomes toxic. You may think, if they leave me, I cannot go on, or if this outcome doesn't happen, my life has no meaning. This kind of attachment turns love into a prison, both for yourself and for the other person. It burdens them with the responsibility of maintaining your emotional stability, which no human can do perfectly. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent anicca. This includes relationships, achievements, possessions, and even your own body. Detachment is the practice of living with this truth, not as a reason for despair, but as a path to freedom. When you live with detachment, you can love someone deeply and still let them walk their own path. You can work passionately toward a goal and still accept it if the outcome changes. You can enjoy your possessions without your happiness being tied to keeping them forever. It's important to note that detachment does not make you passive. In fact, it often makes you more present and engaged. When you are not clinging, you are free to truly experience the moment without fear of losing it. Think about how much of our joy is dampened by the fear of change. You're at a gathering with friends, but part of you is already thinking about how sad you'll feel when it's over. You're in a relationship, but you worry constantly about whether it will last. You have a good job, but you're anxious about being replaced. This fear of impermanence robs you of the very joy you're trying to hold on to. Detachment removes this fear by reminding you, yes, this will change, and that's okay. That's the nature of all things. When you detach, you also become less vulnerable to emotional manipulation. Many people, consciously or unconsciously, try to control others by threatening withdrawal of love, approval, or opportunities. If you are deeply attached to these things for your sense of worth, you can be easily swayed, bending your values to keep them. But when your peace does not depend on any single person or outcome, you can stand firm in your truth without fear of loss. There's a common fear that detachment will make life less colorful. People worry that without strong attachments, their relationships will feel shallow or their passions will fade. In reality, the opposite happens. Detachment allows you to love more purely because your love is no longer tangled with fear and control. You love someone for who they are, not for what they give you or how they make you feel. You engage with life not to fill a void, but to share in the fullness that already exists within you. A practical way to cultivate detachment is through mindfulness meditation. In meditation, you practice observing thoughts and feelings as they arise, without grasping at them or pushing them away. This trains you to witness the impermanence of all mental states. A happy thought comes, it passes. A sad thought comes, it passes. Over time, you see that clinging to either is unnecessary, because both are transient. This same wisdom can be applied to external experiences. Relationships, possessions, successes, and failures all arise and pass in the same way. Another powerful practice is gratitude without attachment. Gratitude allows you to appreciate what you have in the present moment without the illusion that it will last forever. For example, you might say, "I'm deeply grateful for this friendship," while knowing that one day it may change. This mindset keeps you grounded in appreciation rather than fear. In relationships, detachment means allowing others the freedom to be themselves, even if that means they grow in directions that lead away from you. This is not easy. It requires immense trust and humility. But it also means you are not trying to mold someone into your ideal version of them. You see them clearly, love them as they are, and accept the impermanence of your time together. When you love in this way, you avoid the suffocating grip of control that so often kills the very connection we seek to protect. Detachment also applies to your sense of self. Many of us are attached to our identities, our job titles, achievements, roles in our families, or even our struggles. When life shifts and these identities are challenged, when you lose a job, when your children grow up, when you can no longer do what once defined you, it can feel like a part of you has died. But if you have practiced detachment, you understand that these identities are not your true self. They are roles you have played, and roles can change. Beneath them is the awareness that remains constant. True detachment is not numbness, it is the opposite. Numbness is the refusal to feel. Detachment is the willingness to feel fully, without being destroyed by what you feel. It's the ability to stand in the center of joy or pain and know that both are waves in the ocean of your life. You ride the waves, but you are not the waves. When you master detachment, heartbreak still comes, but it no longer shatters you. Disappointments still happen, but they no longer define you. Change still arrives, but it no longer terrifies you. You meet life with open hands, hands that can hold what is given and let go when it is time. And because your happiness is rooted in something deeper than the ever-shifting circumstances of the world, nothing and no one can take it away from you. The paradox is that detachment often deepens love, strengthens presence, and enriches joy. When you stop clinging, you stop living in the fear of loss. When you stop fearing loss, you stop holding back. You give yourself more fully to life, knowing that even if the moment ends, it was worth experiencing with your whole heart. So do not mistake detachment for withdrawal. It is not the act of building walls, it is the art of removing the chains from your heart. It is the freedom to walk through the world with open eyes and an open spirit, embracing each person and each moment without the desperation to make it last forever. This is the kind of strength that makes you unbreakable, not because you avoid love, but because you have learned how to love without losing yourself. Master the art of peace in the middle of chaos. Buddhist wisdom teaches that the true measure of your spiritual strength is not how calm you can be when everything is quiet and easy, but how unshaken you can remain when life is loud, messy, and unpredictable. Anyone can feel at peace on a silent mountaintop. The real mastery is in carrying that same stillness inside you while you are standing in the middle of life's storms. The world will always contain chaos, events you cannot predict, people you cannot control, and outcomes that don't follow your plan. If your peace depends on the world behaving exactly as you want it to, you will spend your life chasing a fragile, conditional happiness that can be broken at any moment. But when you cultivate peace that comes from within, the outside world loses its power to dictate how you feel. The Buddha often compared the mind to a lake. When the lake is still, it reflects the sky perfectly. When it is disturbed by wind or thrown stones, the reflection becomes distorted. Chaos in life is like the wind, it stirs the surface. But the deeper you go into the water, the calmer it becomes. No matter how violent the waves above, the depths remain undisturbed. This is what inner peace feels like when it is fully developed, the ability to live on the surface and experience the waves, while also remaining deeply anchored in the calm below. The first step toward peace in chaos is acceptance, not passive surrender, but an active acknowledgement of reality as it is. Many people waste their energy fighting the fact that life is unpredictable. They think, it shouldn't be this way, or this isn't fair. While it is natural to feel disappointment or frustration, resisting reality only multiplies your suffering. In Buddhism, this is called the second arrow. The first arrow is the pain caused by the situation itself. The second arrow is the pain you create by resisting it. The first arrow is often unavoidable, but the second arrow is entirely in your control. Acceptance is not about liking what's happening, it's about seeing it clearly, without distortion from your expectations or fears. When you can look at chaos and say, this is what is happening right now, you take the first step toward responding instead of reacting. Reaction is automatic, emotional, and often destructive. Response is deliberate, thoughtful, and grounded. The second step is to center yourself in the present moment. Chaos often overwhelms us because our minds start projecting into the future. What if this gets worse? What if I can't handle it? What if everything falls apart? These thoughts create a sense of drowning in problems that haven't even happened yet. Mindfulness brings you back to the single moment you are actually living. In this moment, there is usually far less to fear than your mind imagines. Breathing is one of the simplest and most powerful tools for finding stillness in chaos. When the mind is racing, the breath becomes shallow and fast, which feeds your sense of panic. Slowing your breathing, making each inhale and exhale deep and deliberate, sends a signal to your nervous system. We are safe. We can slow down. This is why Buddhist monks often begin meditation with the breath. It is the anchor that brings you back from the chaos of thought to the steadiness of the body. The third step is to change your relationship with uncertainty. Most chaos is uncomfortable because it forces us into the unknown. We want to control every outcome, and when we cannot, we feel unsafe. But control is largely an illusion. You cannot stop the river of life from flowing, but you can learn to swim with it instead of against it. When you stop seeing uncertainty as a threat and start seeing it as part of the natural unfolding of life, its power to disturb you begins to fade. Buddhist teaching encourages us to see impermanence not as an enemy, but as a truth that can set us free. Everything changes, every storm ends, every intense emotion passes. When you truly believe this, even chaos loses some of its teeth. You stop clinging to the fantasy of a perfect, unchanging life, and you start adapting to the reality of movement and flow. The fourth step is compassion, both for yourself and for others. Chaos often brings out the worst in people. Stress makes tempers short, words sharp, and actions careless. In such moments, it is easy to respond with anger or judgment, but compassion allows you to step back and see that everyone, including you, is doing their best with the tools they have in the moment. This doesn't mean you excuse harmful behavior, but it means you don't carry the extra weight of bitterness. Compassion lightens your load in times when life already feels heavy. Another key to peace in chaos is to anchor yourself in what is unshakable. For Buddhists, this unshakable foundation is not a person, a job, or a possession. All of these are subject to change, but the awareness itself, the witnessing presence within you that experiences life without being destroyed by it. Think of it like the sky. Storms, clouds, and lightning pass through it, but the sky itself remains unchanged. You are the sky, everything else is weather. When you remember this, you can engage with chaos without losing yourself to it. You can take necessary action to address problems, but you do it from a place of steadiness, not panic. You can comfort others without absorbing all of their fear. You can face the unknown without being consumed by it. It's also essential to practice letting go of what you cannot control. Many people stay trapped in turmoil because they keep grasping at things that are already slipping away. Letting go is not giving up, it's choosing to stop pouring your energy into battles you cannot win. This frees your mind to focus on what you can influence, which is always your own thoughts, actions, and attitude. In Buddhist practice, there is also the concept of equanimity, a balanced state of mind that is undisturbed by gain or loss, praise or blame, pleasure or pain. Equanimity does not mean you don't feel these things. It means they no longer throw you off your center. This is perhaps the highest expression of peace in chaos, the ability to be fully human, to laugh, to cry, to strive, to rest without losing your inner balance no matter what comes your way. To cultivate equanimity, start small. Notice when you are pulled strongly toward pleasure or pushed strongly away from discomfort. Pause in those moments and remind yourself, this, too, will pass. Train yourself to hold experiences lightly, as if cupping water in your hands, enjoying it while it's there, allowing it to flow away when it's time. Over time, this practice makes you less reactive to the highs and lows, and more able to stand steady in the middle. Finally, understand that peace in chaos is not something you wait for, it's something you choose, moment by moment. There will never be a day when the world is completely free of noise, conflict, and change. But there can be a day-to-day when you decide that none of these things will control your inner state. You can walk through fire without letting it burn away your calm. You can stand in the middle of a storm and still see clearly. When you live this way, you become a source of stability, not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. Your calm becomes contagious. People will feel safer in your presence, not because you have all the answers, but because you are not easily shaken. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about this mastery is that once you know how to find peace in the middle of chaos, you carry it with you everywhere you go, into every conversation, every challenge, every season of your life. You stop waiting for the world to quiet down before you can be happy. You become the quiet in the middle of the world. And once you become that, nothing and no one can truly take your peace away again. Detach without closing your heart. One of the most misunderstood concepts in Buddhist teaching is detachment. People hear the word and imagine it means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally numb. They think it's about shutting people out, refusing to care, or withdrawing from life altogether. But true detachment, as the Buddha taught, is the exact opposite. It is not about closing your heart, it is about freeing your heart. It is the ability to love fully, to engage deeply, and to care sincerely, without being destroyed when life inevitably changes. If you look honestly at where most of your pain comes from, it's not always the events themselves, it's the way you cling to how things should be. You cling to people, hoping they'll never leave. You cling to moments, wishing they could last forever. You cling to identities, believing they will define you for all time. But the truth is, everything in life is in constant motion. People grow, moments pass, circumstances change. The Buddha's teaching on impermanence, anicca, is clear. Everything you see, touch and feel is in a state of flux. The tighter you hold on, the more it hurts when life inevitably moves forward. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring, it means you care without clinging. It means you can love someone without making them your source of happiness. You can enjoy a moment without fearing its end. You can have dreams without believing your worth depends on them coming true. When you live this way, life stops being a desperate attempt to hold on to everything and starts becoming an open-hearted journey through experiences, knowing that each one is a gift for the time it is given. Think of your heart as a vast, open sky. People, moments and emotions are like birds that fly through it. Some stay for a while, building nests and singing sweet songs. Others pass quickly, barely touching your awareness before they're gone. Detachment means you let them come and go without trying to cage them. Caging the birds may keep them close for a time, but it robs them of their nature, and eventually they will either escape or perish. In the same way, when you cling to people or experiences, you are not loving them as they are. You are loving a version of them you want to control, and control is the enemy of freedom, both yours and theirs. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering. But here is the subtlety. Attachment is not the same as connection. Connection is healthy. It is about being present with someone or something in this moment, giving your attention and care. Attachment is when you tie your sense of self-worth, safety, or happiness to that person or thing, so that if it changes or disappears, you feel shattered. In connection, you hold with open hands. In attachment, you grip with closed fists. One nourishes love, the other suffocates it. Practicing detachment begins with awareness. You start by noticing where you are holding too tightly. Do you feel anxious when someone doesn't message you back quickly? Do you feel empty when you're alone, as if your value disappears without someone else's presence? Do you feel bitter when a happy moment ends, unable to appreciate it because you wish it could have lasted longer? These are signs that attachment, not love, not joy, but attachment is driving your experience. Once you see this clearly, the next step is to create a small gap between your emotions and your identity. You can feel sadness when someone leaves without believing it means you are unlovable. You can feel disappointment when a plan fails without deciding that you are a failure. This is the heart of Buddhist mindfulness, experiencing emotions fully without becoming them. The clouds can pass through your sky, but you do not become the clouds. This gap gives you the space to choose your response instead of being swept away by reaction. Instead of clinging harder when someone pulls away, you can breathe and let them go, trusting that if they return, it will be because they choose to, not because you forced them. Instead of resenting the end of a beautiful moment, you can thank it for what it gave you and release it gracefully. This is not coldness, it is respect for the natural flow of life. A powerful practice for cultivating this skill is loving kindness, meditation, or metta. In this practice, you send wishes of happiness, health, and peace to yourself, to loved ones, to strangers, and even to those you struggle with. You repeat silently, "May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease." This trains your heart to love without demanding anything in return. It teaches you to give freely, without the hidden expectation of getting back what you gave. Detachment also means letting go of the idea that you can control how others feel or behave. Much suffering comes from the belief that if we just say the right thing, do the right thing, or give enough, we can make people love us, stay with us, or treat us well. But love that is forced is not love, it is compliance. True connection comes from choice, not pressure. Detachment frees you from the exhausting and impossible job of managing other people's feelings, so you can focus on living with integrity yourself. In relationships, this means you show up fully, but you also allow others to walk their own path. You respect their freedom to change, to grow, even to leave. You don't tie your sense of worth to their choices. This does not mean you tolerate harm. Buddhist compassion always includes wisdom, and wisdom knows when to walk away from what is unhealthy. Detachment gives you the strength to walk away without hatred, to close a door without slamming it. In daily life, detachment allows you to enjoy pleasures without being enslaved by them. You can savor a delicious meal without obsessing about when you will have it again. You can appreciate a compliment without needing constant praise to feel secure. You can succeed in your work without making your entire identity depend on achievement. In this way, detachment protects you from the endless cycle of craving and disappointment that the Buddha called samsara. There is a quiet power that comes from living with this kind of open-handedness. You stop fearing loss, because you understand that loss is simply the other side of gain. You stop fearing change, because you see that change is life itself, and without those fears driving you, you are free to live more fully in each moment. You can love people as they are, not as you want them to be. You can experience joy without anxiety, because you are no longer measuring it by how long it will last. Some people worry that if they detach, they will stop feeling deeply. But the truth is, detachment makes your feelings more authentic, not less. When you are not tangled in the fear of losing someone, your love for them is purer. It is not love mixed with desperation or control. When you are not clinging to a moment, your joy in it is richer, because you are actually there, not already grieving its end. The lotus flower is a powerful symbol in Buddhism. It grows in muddy water, yet it rises above the surface, opening its petals to the sun without clinging to the mud below or the air above. It is rooted, yet free. This is the essence of detachment: to be in the world, to be rooted in love and compassion, yet to remain free from the chains of attachment that cause suffering. To live this way takes practice. It requires daily mindfulness, regular self-reflection, and the courage to let go when your heart wants to hold on. But the reward is immense. A life where you can give and receive love without fear, where you can engage with the world without being imprisoned by it, and where nothing, not even loss, can truly break you. Because here is the deepest truth. When you detach without closing your heart, you discover that your peace does not depend on what you have or who is with you. It comes from within, and nothing, not change, not loss, not even death can take it away. And once you know this, you are no longer at the mercy of life's ups and downs. You become like the sky itself, vast, open, unshaken, allowing all things to pass through, yet always remaining whole. Release the illusion of control over life's outcomes. One of the most difficult lessons for the human heart to accept is that you cannot control everything, not the weather, not the economy, not the thoughts of others, and certainly not the outcome of every effort you make. Yet, without realizing it, we spend much of our lives clinging to the belief that we can bend reality to our will. We plan every detail, we rehearse every possibility, we overthink every choice, and still, life often unfolds in ways we could not have predicted. And when it doesn't go according to our plan, we feel betrayed, as though life has broken some unspoken promise. Buddhism teaches that this constant grasping for control is a root cause of suffering. We try to control because we think it will keep us safe from disappointment, but in reality, it only deepens our disappointment when things inevitably turn out differently. We try to manage every variable, but life is not a machine. It's a living, breathing flow of causes and conditions beyond our full comprehension. The Buddha's wisdom reminds us, we can influence life, but we cannot dictate it. And learning to release the illusion of control is the path to deep peace. Consider the metaphor of a sailor at sea. The sailor can study the tides, read the winds, and set the sails skillfully, but he cannot control the ocean itself. If he fights the waves, he will exhaust himself and risk being pulled under. But if he learns to work with them, adjusting his sails to the direction of the wind, he can still move toward his destination. Life is the same. You can steer your ship, but you cannot command the sea. To demand that the sea always be calm is to doom yourself to endless frustration. The illusion of control often shows up in relationships. We want people to treat us a certain way, to think well of us, to behave in ways that match our expectations. We spend time and energy trying to convince, persuade, or even manipulate them to act as we wish. But no matter how persuasive you are, no matter how much love or effort you give, you cannot control another person's heart. People will change in ways you cannot predict. They will make choices you would not make. And the harder you grip, the more they will pull away. This is why the Buddha emphasized non-attachment, not because love is bad, but because clinging destroys the freedom that true love requires. In your own mind, the illusion of control takes the form of endless planning and overthinking. You replay scenarios, trying to account for every possible outcome before it happens. You delay action, waiting for the perfect time, as if you could arrange reality so nothing unexpected will occur. But there will always be unexpected events, both good and bad. You might prepare for rain, only for the sun to shine. You might prepare for success, only to be met with failure that teaches you far more than victory could. This is not life failing you. This is life showing you that its nature is bigger than your plans. Releasing control does not mean giving up responsibility. The Buddha never taught passivity. He taught wise effort. You still take action, but you release the belief that you can guarantee the results. You plant seeds, you water them, you protect them from harm, but you accept that you cannot force them to sprout. The conditions for growth are not all in your hands. The soil, the sun, the rain, all are beyond your command. Your job is to tend the garden, not to demand the harvest. This shift in perspective transforms how you respond to life's challenges. When you let go of control, You stop seeing every failure as a personal flaw. You understand that sometimes the timing is not right or the conditions are not ready, and this is not a reflection of your worth. You stop blaming yourself for things that were never yours to control in the first place. You begin to move through life with a lighter step, because you are no longer dragging the impossible weight of trying to control the uncontrollable. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness is the key to breaking the habit of control. When you are mindful, you notice the moment when anxiety starts to build because something is not going your way. Instead of tightening your grip, you take a breath. You remind yourself, I am responsible for my actions, not for all outcomes. You let go of the idea that the present moment must match your mental image of how it should be. This doesn't mean you stop working toward what matters. It means you stop suffering when life takes a different path. The illusion of control is closely linked to fear. We try to control because we fear uncertainty. We believe that if we can predict and shape everything, we can avoid pain. But the paradox is that life's greatest moments often come from what we could not have predicted: the unexpected kindness, the unforeseen opportunity, the unplanned change that opens a new door. When you release control, you make space for these surprises. You become more open, more adaptable, more alive. There is a Zen saying, let go or be dragged. This captures the heart of the teaching. When you hold too tightly to your idea of how life should be, you get dragged by every change, every twist, every disappointment. When you let go, you stop being dragged and start walking with the flow of life. This does not mean the road will always be easy, but it means you will have the strength and clarity to navigate it without being broken. One way to practice this is through what in Buddhism is called equanimity meditation. You sit quietly and bring to mind the truth of impermanence, that all things arise and pass away. You visualize the moments of your life as waves coming to shore, some gentle, some powerful, but all eventually dissolving back into the ocean. You reflect on the countless causes and conditions that shape each wave, most of which are far beyond your control. And in this reflection, you feel a deep humility and peace, knowing that you are part of something much larger than yourself. When you truly release control, you also release resentment. You stop holding grudges against life for not following your script. You stop resenting others for not living according to your expectations. You realize that your peace is too precious to be placed in the hands of circumstances or other people's choices. Your peace comes from aligning your actions with your values and then letting life unfold as it will. Imagine standing in a river, trying to stop the current with your hands. The more you push against it, the more force it exerts, and the more exhausted you become. But if you turn and move with the current, you find that it can carry you forward with far less effort. This is the essence of releasing control. You stop fighting the flow of life and start learning from it. The Buddha once said, if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you will have complete peace. Letting go of control is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. You will find yourself clinging again and again, and each time you gently remind yourself to release. Over time, the grip loosens. Over time, you begin to trust the flow. This trust is not blind faith, it is the wisdom that comes from observing reality. You see that even when things do not go your way, life continues. You see that you have survived disappointments before and even grown from them. You see that the universe is not something to be wrestled into submission, but something to be navigated with awareness, skill, and grace. And in this understanding, the fear of losing control begins to fade. When you live this way, no one and nothing can truly break you, because your happiness is no longer tied to bending life into the shape you want. It is tied to your ability to meet life as it is. You stop measuring your worth by the results you get and start measuring it by the integrity with which you act. You discover that freedom is not having control over everything, but no longer needing to. And perhaps the most beautiful gift of all is this. When you release control, you become more compassionate. You understand that others are also navigating forces beyond their control. You judge less, you forgive more, and you relate to others with the empathy that comes from knowing we are all riding the same unpredictable waves. You stop demanding perfection from life, and in doing so, you find a peace that no storm can take away. 24. Free yourself from the need for external validation. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by the eyes and voices of others. As children, we look to our parents for approval, a smile when we do something good, a frown or scolding when we do something bad. In school, we are graded, compared, and praised or criticized in front of others. This pattern embeds itself deep in our minds, that our value is something given to us by other people, something measured by their words, expressions, and acceptance. By the time we reach adulthood, many of us have unconsciously built our entire sense of self on this fragile foundation. We live in a constant state of seeking. We dress in ways that will earn compliments. We speak in ways that will avoid judgment. We take actions calculated to win approval. Even the way we share our successes is often shaped not by our joy in the achievement, but by the anticipation of how others will respond. And when the approval comes, we feel uplifted, validated, sometimes even invincible. But when it doesn't, or when criticism comes instead, it feels as if the ground has been pulled from under us. We feel worthless, misunderstood, invisible. This dependency on external validation is like being a leaf tossed in the wind. One gust of praise sends you soaring high. One gust of criticism sends you crashing down. In such a state, your peace, your self-worth, and even your decisions are not your own. They belong to the ever-changing moods and opinions of others. The Buddha's teachings point us toward freedom from this endless cycle, not by rejecting all feedback, but by anchoring our worth in something far deeper and unshakable. The first step to freeing yourself from this need is to truly see its nature. Approval and disapproval from others are not fixed truths. They are reflections of each person's individual preferences, conditioning, and momentary state of mind. One person might find you inspiring, another might find you irritating. Both judgments say more about them than they do about you. Just as clouds pass across the sky without changing the nature of the sky itself, so too do people's opinions pass across the surface of your life without altering your true essence. Imagine a clear, still lake. When the wind blows, ripples form on the surface. When someone throws a stone, waves spread outward. But beneath the surface, the water remains calm and untouched. Your true self, the awareness beneath your personality, achievements, and social identity, is like the depths of that lake. Praise may create ripples of joy. Criticism may stir waves of discomfort, but neither can change the depth of who you are. The problem comes when we mistake the ripples for the whole lake, letting each disturbance define our entire being. This need for validation also traps us in subtle forms of self-betrayal. How many times have you agreed to something you didn't truly want, simply because you feared someone's disapproval? How many times have you stayed silent when you should have spoken up because you didn't want to be judged? How many times have you bent or abandoned your values to fit into a group or to be liked by someone? Each time you do this, you send a message to yourself that their acceptance is more valuable than your integrity. Over time, this erodes your self-respect, the very foundation of inner strength. Buddhism invites us to turn inward for the validation we seek. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissive of all feedback. It means cultivating a deep, honest relationship with yourself so that your sense of worth is not dependent on passing praise or criticism. The Buddha spoke of self-reliance, in this sense not as isolation, but as an unshakable knowing of one's own heart. When you know you are acting with compassion, integrity and wisdom, you can stand steady even if the world does not applaud. A powerful practice for breaking free from external validation is mindful self-reflection. Each day, instead of asking, "Did they like me? Did I impress them? Did I get their approval?" you ask, "Was I kind? Was I honest? Did I act in alignment with my values?" These questions shift your focus from external reaction to internal alignment. Over time, you begin to measure your worth by the quality of your actions and intentions, rather than by the temporary responses they evoke. Another Buddhist practice that supports this freedom is the contemplation of impermanence. When you reflect deeply on the fact that everything changes people's moods, preferences, opinions, you see how unreliable it is to base your worth on them. The compliment that lifted you today may be forgotten tomorrow. The criticism that wounded you deeply last month may be irrelevant in a year. Why, then, give such fleeting things the power to define you? The pursuit of validation also keeps us in a constant state of comparison. We measure ourselves against others, trying to match or surpass them in beauty, success, wealth, or status. But comparison is a game with no finish line. There will always be someone ahead in one area and behind in another. The Buddha's path frees us from this trap by focusing our energy inward on the cultivation of our own mind, heart, and actions rather than outward, on trying to meet the shifting standards of others. This shift is not easy. In a world where social media amplifies every like, share, and comment, the pull of external validation is stronger than ever. We are rewarded instantly for presenting ourselves in ways that please others, and we are punished instantly when we deviate from what is popular. It takes courage to step away from this and to base your worth on something deeper, but this courage is the foundation of true freedom. To embody this principle fully, you must also learn to sit with discomfort. There will be times when your truth is not what others want to hear, when your actions are not what they expect, and their disapproval will sting. Your mind may rush to justify, explain, or change yourself to regain their approval. In these moments, pause, breathe. Remind yourself that your goal is not to please everyone, but to live authentically and compassionately. Discomfort will pass, but the self-respect you preserve will remain. This does not mean becoming rigid or refusing to learn from others. In fact, when you are free from the desperate need for validation, you can receive feedback with far greater clarity. You can consider others' perspectives without feeling personally attacked or desperate to please. You can take what is useful and leave the rest, without your self-worth hanging in the balance. This is the balance of humility and self-trust, the ability to be open without being controlled. In Buddhist teachings, there is a phrase, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This does not mean shutting out the light of others, but rather making your own inner wisdom the primary source of guidance. Others' insights can illuminate the path, but they should not be the ground you walk on. When you are a lamp unto yourself, you can walk in both praise and blame without losing your way, because your light comes from within. The liberation that comes from releasing the need for external validation is profound. You find yourself making braver choices, choosing paths that feel right to you, even if they are not popular. You find that your relationships become more authentic because you are no longer performing for approval. You are connecting from a place of truth. You discover a peace that is not dependent on applause, a dignity that cannot be shaken by criticism, and, perhaps most importantly, you reclaim the power that was always yours, the power to decide your own worth. When you know your worth from within, the praise of others becomes a gift you can appreciate without needing and their criticism becomes a perspective you can consider without fearing. You are no longer a leaf tossed in the wind. You are the rooted tree that stands firm in both sun and storm. When you walk this way, nothing and no one can truly break you, because your sense of self is not in their hands. It rests in the quiet, steady truth of your own heart. And in that place, untouched by the passing winds of opinion, you find a freedom so deep that the noise of the world can no longer disturb your peace. If there is one truth the Buddha's teachings make clear, it is this: the storms of life will never cease. People will come and go. Relationships will change. Words will be spoken that cut deep. Loss will visit without warning. The world will not rearrange itself to protect you from hurt, because pain is woven into the very fabric of existence. But here is the great secret: it is not the presence of pain that determines the quality of your life. It is the way you meet it. When you understand this, you realize that invincibility is not about building walls so high that nothing can reach you. True invincibility is about becoming so deeply rooted in wisdom, compassion, and self-understanding that even when life does reach you, it cannot break you. You stop trying to control the waves, and instead you learn how to ride them with grace. You stop fearing the winds, and instead you learn how to bend without snapping. You stop giving your power away to the hands, words, and moods of others, and instead you place it firmly back where it belongs, within your own heart. Every principle we have explored is a step on this path. Learning that pain is temporary teaches you patience. Understanding the impermanence of all things frees you from clinging. Cultivating equanimity allows you to remain steady, no matter how the tides turn. Releasing the need for external validation returns you to the quiet dignity of your own self-worth. Together, these teachings weave a shield, not a shield of hardness that shuts out life, but a shield of wisdom that allows you to walk into life fully open, yet untouched in your deepest core. The Buddha often compared life to a lotus flower. The lotus grows in muddy water, yet its petals remain untainted, rising above the surface to bloom in the sunlight. This is the image of the unbreakable heart. You live in a world full of conflict, impermanence, and challenge, yet you can rise above the mud without denying it exists. You can live among people's praise and criticism without being enslaved by either. You can feel deeply without drowning in the tide of your emotions. You can love without fear, because you no longer mistake attachment for love. There will still be moments when you falter. You will still feel the sting of words, the ache of loss, the frustration of misunderstanding. You are human, and the path is long. But now, you will know how to meet those moments differently. Instead of reacting, you will pause. Instead of clinging, you will release. Instead of letting the wound define you, you will allow it to teach you. And with each experience, you will grow more spacious inside, less reactive, more compassionate, more free. The greatest victory is not in conquering others, but in conquering your own mind. This is the heart of Buddhism, not an escape from life, but a deeper entry into it, armed with the clarity and peace that no one can take from you. When you live this way, you realize that nothing and no one has the power to truly hurt you, because the essence of who you are is beyond harm. You are the sky, vast and open, while storms pass through. You are the mountain, unmoved by the winds. You are the calm lake, reflecting both light and shadow without losing your depth. And so, as you walk forward from here, do not seek a life free from pain. Seek a heart free from fear. Do not seek a world without conflict. Seek a mind that meets conflict with clarity. Do not seek to avoid every storm. Seek to become the one who can stand in the rain, unshaken, unbroken, and still smiling. For in that state, you are no longer at the mercy of the world, you are free. And freedom is the greatest peace you will ever know.